Have you ever noticed that the deepest wounds of the human heart rarely come from what happens to us, but from how we react? Think about it. How many sleepless nights have been stolen by replaying an insult, an argument, a careless word? We cling to the poison of others, drink it as if it were our own, and let it burn inside us. That's the silent tragedy. Most of our suffering isn't born in the world outside, but in the storm we create within. And yet, hidden within this pain lies a secret power, one so overlooked but so transformative, that it can free us from the chains of conflict and restore a peace unshakable. What if the strongest act you could take was to do nothing at all, to rise above the noise, to remain still when others try to shake you? This is the mystery we will unfold together, the power of ignoring others, not as indifference but as wisdom. Stay with me, because once you understand this, your life will never feel the same again. If this message touches something deep within you, I invite you to subscribe to Buddhism in every moment. Your support gives us the strength to keep creating meaningful videos that bring wisdom, peace, and inspiration to your daily life. Part 1. The hidden power of silence. We all know the exhaustion that follows a heated argument, the way our heart races, our chest tightens, and our mind replays the words over and over again long after the moment has passed. Hours, sometimes days, are wasted on conflicts that resolve nothing. We carry the weight of words that should have been left behind, turning them into chains that drag down our energy and spirit. This is the universal pain of humanity, the unnecessary battles we choose, the relentless cycle of reaction that steals the very peace we crave. But imagine if silence, a presence so simple yet so often misunderstood, could become the shield that protects us. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence, when chosen with wisdom, is power. It is the power to rise above the clamor of voices demanding a reaction, to refuse the invitation into chaos, to hold steady when the world around you trembles with noise. In silence, you do not give away your energy, you preserve it. In silence, you do not bend under provocation, you stand taller. Noise has always sought to control society. The loudest voices dominate the room, headlines scream for attention, social media feeds pulse with anger and opinions, each one demanding we respond. We live in an age where silence is treated as invisibility, where to stay quiet is assumed to be weakness. And yet, this is the illusion that keeps us enslaved. True empowerment is not found in constant reaction. It is found in mastering the art of selective response. Those who choose silence in the right moments claim a freedom that noise can never grant. Think of it, the power shift that happens when someone tries to provoke you and you remain unmoved. They expect your anger, your defense, your participation in their storm. Instead, they meet the stillness of a mind that cannot be shaken. In that moment, the control changes hands. Your silence becomes the mirror that reflects their chaos back at them. You walk away intact, while they are left wrestling with their own unrest. This is not theory, it is lived truth. There are people who once wasted nights arguing online with strangers, who now practice ignoring provocations and feel lighter than they ever imagined. There are parents who once shouted back at criticism, who now choose a pause and watch how the energy in the room shifts toward calm. There are workers in high-pressure offices who used to fight for every word, but who discovered that sometimes saying nothing communicates more strength than any rebuttal could. Again and again, ignoring negativity does not mean losing. It means winning back your own peace. And this is a power anyone can cultivate. Begin with something simple, a 5-minute practice of mindful silence each day. Set aside a moment, free from screens and voices, and let yourself sit in stillness. When a thought rises, do not chase it. Let it pass like a cloud across the sky. When a memory of a conflict tries to draw you in, watch it but do not respond. Allow your body to breathe, your heart to settle, and your mind to rest in the quiet. What you are training in that moment is more than calm. It is resilience. You are teaching yourself that not every impulse deserves to be followed, not every spark deserves to be fanned into a flame. Over time, this practice becomes a reflex. Before you respond to a cutting remark, before you send that defensive text, before you raise your voice in a room filled with tension, you will pause. That pause is silence, and that silence is power. It is in that pause that you discover the difference between being a slave to your emotions and being the master of your peace. The hidden power of silence does not ask you to abandon your voice. It asks you to use it with intention. It does not ask you to live passively. It invites you to live wisely. It whispers the truth that not every battle is worth fighting, not every opinion worth answering, not every storm worth entering. And in that realization lies the beginning of a freedom so rare, so profound, that once you taste it, you will never wish to live without it again. When you pause long enough to step outside the cycle of reaction, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You start to notice how much of life's noise is artificial, manufactured by others who thrive on drawing you into their turbulence. Arguments are rarely about truth. More often, they are projections of frustration, insecurity, or fear. The person raising their voice is not trying to reach understanding. They are asking unconsciously for validation, for release, for someone else to carry their burden. And when you give in, when you answer, defend, or retaliate, you take on that burden yourself. Silence then becomes a refusal to accept what was never yours to begin with. Consider the countless arguments that have stolen time from people's lives. A husband and wife fight late into the night, their words sharp and endless, neither side truly listening. By dawn, there is no resolution, only exhaustion. A worker sits at their desk, replaying a critical remark from their manager, formulating comebacks that will never be spoken. Hours of creativity are lost to resentment. A stranger on social media types insults beneath your post, and you spend half your evening crafting a response that convinces no one. What was accomplished? Nothing, except the draining of energy, the scattering of focus, the erosion of peace. Silence, in contrast, is a decision to preserve your energy for what truly matters. It is not an escape but a redirection. The quiet you keep becomes the ground on which your clarity stands. Imagine walking through New York's Central Park at sunrise. The city beyond is alive with car horns and chatter, yet inside the park, the stillness of trees and water teaches you something powerful, that peace can exist even beside chaos if you choose where to place your attention. Your silence is that park within the city of noise. And yet, silence is not easy. It demands discipline. It demands faith that you do not have to respond to prove your worth. Society trains us to equate speaking with strength, to believe that the loudest voice wins. But this is a dangerous illusion. History reminds us that some of the most transformative forces were carried not by noise but by stillness. A mountain does not argue with the wind, yet it endures longer than any storm. The ocean does not shout at the sky, yet it outlasts every cloud. Real strength does not need to announce itself. It is revealed in the quiet certainty of presence. To live by silence is to understand the currency of your own attention. Every reaction is an investment of energy, and not all investments are wise. To argue with someone unwilling to listen is like pouring water into a broken cup. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough. But when you remain silent, when you withdraw your energy from fruitless conflict, you reclaim the ability to pour yourself into what matters: your work, your passions, your loved ones, your growth. The power of ignoring is not about shutting out the world. It is about protecting the sacred space of your own life. Reflect for a moment on how silence shifts the dynamics of power. In the workplace, when confronted by unfair criticism, silence can unsettle those who expect your defense. They push, they provoke, and when they are met with calm, they are forced to face their own words without your participation. In families, when a relative stirs drama, silence prevents escalation and gives others permission to step out of the storm as well. On social media, where outrage spreads like wildfire, silence is the refusal to add fuel to flames that burn away collective well-being. Each of these examples reveals a paradox. Silence, though invisible, is one of the most potent forces of transformation. This truth becomes clearer when we look at the human body itself. Our minds crave silence the way lungs crave clean air. Science tells us that noise raises stress hormones, while moments of quiet repair our nervous system, calm our heartbeat, and restore our focus. But beyond biology lies something deeper, the soul's hunger for stillness. You can sense it in the quiet of a library, in the pause before a symphony begins, in the hush of dawn before the world awakens. In these moments, silence feels almost alive, as if it were not the absence of sound but the presence of something greater. When you practice silence as a response to conflict, you are not doing nothing. You are aligning with this greater presence. This alignment does not mean avoidance. It does not mean tolerating abuse or injustice. Rather, it is the wisdom to discern which battles shape your destiny and which battles steal your peace. Silence is not for the moments when harm must be confronted. Silence is for the provocations that exist only to lure you into emptiness. It is the art of choosing where your voice will matter most. The practice of silence begins small. You do not need to take a vow of wordlessness or withdraw from the world. You begin by inserting pauses into your day. A colleague sends an email that stings. Wait 5 minutes before replying. A driver cuts you off on the highway. Breathe before you honk or shout. A friend makes a sarcastic comment. Smile and let the words dissolve without response. Each pause is a seed of strength, and over time, these seeds grow into the deep roots of resilience. To anchor this habit, try a daily ritual, 5 minutes of mindful silence. Find a quiet place, perhaps a corner of your room, a bench in a park, or even the front seat of your car before you step into the rush of work. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. When thoughts rise, acknowledge them without judgment and let them pass. Do not force silence, allow it to reveal itself. In this short practice, you are training your mind to recognize the difference between impulse and intention. The same recognition, carried into daily life, will allow you to remain still when provoked, to choose your responses with clarity rather than reflex. Over weeks and months, this practice rewires your relationship with conflict. Where once you leapt to defend yourself, you now observe first. Where once you matched aggression with aggression, you now stand grounded. And in that grounding, others begin to sense something different in you. They may not be able to name it, but they feel it. The quiet authority of someone who cannot be shaken by every gust of wind. This authority is not loud, not boastful, not desperate. It is the authority of silence, and it commands more respect than any shouted words could ever earn. The hidden power of silence transforms not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. You begin to understand that your worth is not tied to winning arguments or convincing others. You discover that peace is not found in being right, but in being free. You realize that ignoring what does not deserve your energy is not indifference, but the deepest form of care, for yourself, for your well-being, and ultimately for the life you are here to live. And so when you next stand on the edge of an argument, when anger surges and words burn at the tip of your tongue, remember this. Silence is not nothing. Silence is strength. Silence is choice. Silence is freedom. Choose it and watch how your life begins to change. Silence becomes most powerful when we realize that not every fight we enter is truly about the surface issue. Look closely at the arguments you have engaged in. How many of them were about the dishes left unwashed, the careless words spoken, or the opinion shared too loudly? Beneath the surface, these arguments are rarely about the thing itself. They are about unhealed wounds, insecurities, and frustrations looking for a doorway out. When you respond, you become that doorway. When you stay silent, you deny entry. This is not neglect, it is self-protection. And it is an invitation for the other person to confront their own emotions instead of handing them off to you. In today's world, the pressure to react is immense. Social media is a theater of outrage, where silence is mistaken for defeat and every post invites conflict. News cycles thrive on anger, conditioning us to believe we must choose a side and defend it with vigor. Even in our personal lives, The culture of instant communication demands immediate replies to texts, emails, and phone calls. Yet silence teaches us something radical. You are under no obligation to meet every demand placed upon you. The world will still spin if you don't type a comeback. The relationship will not collapse if you take a breath before answering. Silence is the courage to reclaim your pace in a world determined to control it. This courage is not easy. The ego resists silence. The ego insists that if you do not respond, you are weak, you are defeated, you are less. But the truth is the opposite. The ego needs conflict to survive, the soul does not. To remain silent when provoked is to deny the ego its fuel. It is to say, my peace is more valuable than my pride. The more often you choose this, the lighter your spirit becomes. You are no longer dragged into every quarrel, no longer baited into battles that cost more than they give. You begin to feel a freedom unknown to those still trapped in the cycle of reaction. Picture yourself standing on a cliff above the ocean. A storm rages, waves crash violently, and the wind howls. If you try to shout over the storm, your voice is swallowed whole. If you rage back at the wind, it does not bend to your will. But if you stand in silence, rooted in calm, you discover something remarkable. The storm may be loud, but it cannot touch the stillness within you. This is the metaphor of silence in conflict. Arguments may rage around you. Accusations may be hurled, but when you choose not to react, you are untouchable. There is another truth hidden in silence. It reveals more than words ever can. When someone tries to provoke you and you do not respond, they are forced to sit with their own actions. Your silence holds up a mirror. It says, without speaking, your words belong to you, not me. Often, that mirror is more confronting than any argument could be. The aggressor sees themselves clearly, perhaps for the first time, and realizes they cannot control you. This realization shifts the balance of power. You are no longer a participant in their chaos. You are the observer, the witness, the one who remains whole. Consider how silence transforms relationships. In marriages and partnerships, arguments often escalate because both sides feel the need to have the last word. But when one partner chooses silence, not in contempt but in wisdom, the cycle of escalation is broken. The silence becomes space, space for cooling down, for reflection, for genuine conversation later. In friendships, silence in the face of gossip or negativity sends a quiet message. I will not feed this energy. In the workplace, silence when confronted with an unfair remark can be more professional than retaliation, preserving your dignity and demonstrating restraint. Again and again, silence proves itself not as passivity but as the art of influence without aggression. To practice silence is also to practice listening, not just to others but to yourself. When you stop rushing to respond, you begin to hear the subtle currents of your own mind. You notice the emotions rising within you: anger, hurt, defensiveness. You see them not as commands but as signals. And in seeing them, you gain the power to choose. Silence is the bridge between impulse and wisdom. Without it, we are slaves to reaction. With it, we become masters of ourselves. A practical way to strengthen this mastery is through the simple discipline of mindful silence. Set aside 5 minutes each day. Sit in stillness, close your eyes, and let the noise of the world fall away. Notice how thoughts arrive, eager for your attention. Notice the urge to chase them, to argue with them, to justify yourself even in the privacy of your mind. And then choose not to. Choose to let them drift by like leaves on a river. In this small daily ritual, you train your mind to recognize that not every thought deserves a reaction. Over time, this training spills into your daily life. A harsh word is spoken, and instead of reacting, you remember, not every storm deserves my presence. In fact, one of the greatest lessons silence teaches is this: most storms pass without your intervention. Think back to arguments you joined in the past. How many of them truly changed because of your words? How many would have dissolved on their own had you remained silent? We tend to overestimate the power of our reactions, believing we must always intervene. But silence proves otherwise. It shows us that the world does not collapse without our voice in every moment. Often, silence allows the storm to spend itself into nothing. There is a story often told of great leaders and thinkers who practiced deliberate silence before responding. Abraham Lincoln, for instance, was known to write letters in anger and then place them in a drawer, never sending them. His silence was not weakness but strategy, allowing him to preserve his energy for decisions that mattered. In modern times, some of the most successful negotiators are those who use silence intentionally, letting the other side reveal more than they intended simply because they cannot bear the quiet. Silence, when wielded with wisdom, becomes not just defense but influence. Perhaps the most profound gift of silence is that it allows us to see what truly matters. When the noise falls away, when the compulsion to respond is set aside, we are left with clarity. We see which battles shape our destiny and which battles are distractions. We recognize that our time on this earth is too precious to waste on every insult, every provocation, every meaningless quarrel. Silence gives us back our time, our focus, our life. And so, the hidden power of silence is not hidden at all. It is always there, waiting for us to notice, waiting for us to trust it. Every moment we remain still instead of reactive, we touch this power. Every argument we step away from, we claim it. Every time we choose peace over pride, we embody it. This is not easy, and it will not happen overnight. But with each act of mindful silence, with each pause, with each breath taken before words are spoken, we move closer to a life anchored in strength rather than scattered by noise. The world may never stop demanding our reaction. There will always be voices shouting, always storms raging, always provocations tempting us. But we are not powerless. We hold within us the ability to choose. We hold the gift of silence, the wisdom to walk away, the strength to remain whole. And in that choice lies the beginning of freedom. Silence, when chosen with intention, does something remarkable to the human spirit. It begins to untangle the knots of constant resistance. Most of us spend our days fighting to be heard, to be understood, to be right, to defend ourselves against every perceived slight. This constant resistance tightens our body, clouds our judgment, and exhausts our soul. But when we allow silence to enter, resistance softens. We no longer feel the need to meet every word with a counterword, every blow with a counterblow. The body relaxes, the heart steadies, the mind clears. Silence becomes the medicine that heals the wounds inflicted by endless noise. Imagine walking through a crowded marketplace in Marrakech. Vendors call out, voices overlap, the air vibrates with the urgency of persuasion. At first, you may feel overwhelmed, pulled in a dozen directions, tempted to answer every call. But then you find a small side street, quiet and shaded, where the noise fades. In that space, you remember yourself. You realize that you do not have to answer every voice, that silence itself is a kind of anchor. Life is often this marketplace. Without silence, we are dragged into every direction. With silence, we find the side street that leads us back to peace. But silence is not merely about retreat. It is about transformation. Each time you choose silence over reaction, you rewrite the story of who you are. You move from being a prisoner of impulse to being a master of intention. You shift from being tossed by external winds to being rooted in inner stability. And over time, people around you notice. They see that you are not so easily rattled, that provocations which once stirred you now pass through without effect. They may not understand the depth of your practice, but they feel its presence. You become like the calm eye of a storm, surrounded by chaos, yet untouched by it. Of course, silence does not mean ignoring everything in life. It does not mean turning your back on injustice or swallowing emotions until they corrode you from within. True silence is discerning. It asks you to listen first, to feel deeply, and then to decide, is my voice needed here? Will speaking serve truth, kindness, and necessity? If the answer is no, silence is the wiser path. But when the answer is yes, silence prepares you to speak with clarity and power, rather than from anger or fear. Thus, silence is not the absence of voice, but the refinement of it. This refinement becomes evident in daily life. Consider how many arguments arise not because of what was said, but because of how quickly it was said. A hasty comment, an impulsive reply, an unfiltered reaction. These ignite fires that silence could have prevented. If only there had been a pause, a moment of reflection, a breath held in stillness, the fire would never have sparked. Silence, then, is like water at the edge of flame. It does not deny that fire exists, but it prevents it from spreading uncontrollably. And the power of silence reaches beyond conflict. It nurtures creativity and depth. Some of the greatest works of art, literature, and philosophy were born not in noise but in solitude, in hours of silence where thoughts could settle and ideas could emerge. Writers retreat to quiet cabins, musicians seek stillness before composing, thinkers wander alone in nature. They understand that silence is not empty, it is fertile ground. In your own life, moments of silence can become the space where solutions appear, where clarity surfaces, where inspiration whispers. To live without silence is to live without access to this deeper well. To cultivate this well, practice silence not only in moments of conflict, but also in moments of calm. Begin your mornings with quiet instead of reaching immediately for your phone. End your evenings with stillness instead of flooding your mind with the last noise of the day. Walk without headphones. Eat without distraction. Allow silence to fill ordinary spaces, and soon it will feel less like a stranger and more like a companion. Then, when conflict does arise, silence will not feel forced. It will feel natural, the continuation of a practice you already know. There is another dimension to silence that is rarely spoken about. Its ability to reveal the truth of relationships. When you choose silence, some people will become frustrated, even angry. They depended on your reaction to feed their sense of control. When that reaction disappears, they may accuse you of indifference or weakness. But in time, you will see who truly values peace and who thrives only on drama. Silence becomes a filter. It shows you who respects your calm and who resents it. And from this knowledge, you can decide more wisely whom to keep close and whom to let go. In the end, the hidden power of silence is not really hidden at all. It has been with humanity since the beginning, whispered through ancient teachings and lived by those who sought wisdom over noise. The Buddha himself often taught through silence, allowing disciples to discover answers within themselves rather than drowning them in words. Across cultures, silence has always been revered as sacred. The hush of a cathedral, the quiet of meditation, the pause between musical notes. We know, instinctively, that silence carries something the world of words cannot. What we must relearn is the courage to trust it. So let us imagine a life where silence becomes our strength, a life where provocations glance off us like arrows striking stone, a life where we preserve our energy for love, for creation, for what nourishes us instead of wasting it on empty battles. A life where we listen more than we shout, reflect more than we react, pause more than we rush. This is not a fantasy. It is available to each of us. It begins with a single decision: to value peace over pride, clarity over chaos, silence over noise. And here is your invitation. Tomorrow, before you speak, pause. Before you defend, pause. Before you type a reply that will cost you peace, pause. In that pause lies your freedom. In that pause lies your strength. In that pause lies the hidden power of silence. Part 2. The Trap of Reaction. From the earliest days of our lives, long before we could fully understand the meaning of words, we were already being trained in the art of reaction. A child falls on the playground and another laughs at them. Almost instinctively, the child wants to shout back to prove they are not weak. A sibling teases, and the urge to defend arises instantly. In school, when a teacher challenges us, we feel compelled to justify ourselves, to show that we are not less than others. Society reinforces this pattern over and over. Do not let anyone disrespect you. Do not let anyone win against you. Do not appear silent in the face of confrontation. It becomes a reflex so ingrained that most of us do not even notice it is there, controlling our lives like an invisible puppet master. But this reflex, this automatic reaction comes with a cost. Each time we respond without thought, we hand over our peace, our clarity, our strength. Think of a boat traveling down a wide, calm river. Its destination is far ahead, its sails open, its course steady. Yet every time a stone is thrown from the shore, the captain stops rowing, picks up the stone, and throws it back. Again and again, the boat halts midstream. The journey becomes longer, the destination more distant, not because the river is unkind, but because the captain cannot resist the temptation to react. How many of us are living this way, pausing the journey of our own lives just to throw back stones that were never worth our energy? Reactions are like storms brewing inside us. At first, the air is calm, the sky open. But a single insult, a careless glance, a word out of place acts as a seed of thunder. We feel the tension rising, the clouds of defensiveness gathering, the lightning of anger flashing in our chest. Before we know it, we are in the middle of a storm we did not choose, yet one we are now trapped in. And when the storm passes, as storms always do, what is left? A path littered with debris, broken trust, wasted energy, regret. All of it because we surrendered to the trap of reaction. Reaction hands over power in ways we seldom realize. The moment you react, the other person controls you. They know they can touch a nerve, that they can command your time and emotions with a single word. It is as if you placed the strings of your mind into their hands and allowed them to pull at will. Every outburst, every defensive statement, every attempt to prove yourself is evidence that you are no longer steering your own ship. Instead, you are being steered by the provocations of others. This is why reaction is not strength. It is surrender dressed in disguise. The modern world magnifies this trap in ways that are almost inescapable. Walk through Times Square at night and you will understand. Neon signs blaze across the sky, each one screaming for your attention. 1,000 lights flicker, flash, and compete for your gaze. Look here, look there, buy this, watch that. The noise is overwhelming, and yet the power remains in your eyes. Where will you choose to look? Which light will you grant your attention? Reactions work the same way. Every day, countless provocations flash before you like neon signs. The rude driver, the snide remark, the political post designed to anger you, the gossip waiting to trap you. Each one says, look at me, react to me, give me your energy. But the choice remains yours. Will you spend your life responding to every flashing sign, or will you walk steadily through the noise, eyes fixed on what truly matters? It takes wisdom to recognize that not all triggers deserve reaction. Wisdom tells us that our attention is finite, like water poured from a vessel. If we spill it on every small flame, there will be none left to nourish what matters. Consider a person holding a torch in the dark. If they use the flame to set fire to every twig, soon nothing but ashes remain. But if they carry the torch forward, using it only when necessary, the flame guides them to their destination. Your energy, your words, your reactions, these are your flame. You cannot afford to waste them on every provocation. And yet so often we do. A stranger on the subway mutters something offensive, and suddenly our mood is ruined for the entire day. A colleague questions our decision, and we spend hours drafting arguments in our minds. A comment online sends us into a spiral of defense and explanation. What have we gained in these moments? Nothing. What have we lost? Time, energy, peace of mind. We fall into the illusion that reaction is necessary, that silence would make us appear weak. But silence, as we have begun to understand, is not weakness. It is mastery. Reaction is what truly weakens us because it proves that our inner state can be manipulated at will. The tragedy is that we have been trained to believe the opposite. From childhood, we are rewarded for quick replies, praised for clever comebacks, admired for defending ourselves in debates. Society claps for those who fight back, but it rarely honors those who walk away. And so we internalize a dangerous lie, that reaction equals strength. By the time we reach adulthood, the lie feels like truth and we live our lives chained to it. But if we look honestly at the outcomes of our reactions, the truth becomes clear. Has reacting brought us lasting peace? Has it strengthened our relationships? Has it given us clarity, wisdom, or growth? Or has it left us drained, regretful, and farther from who we wish to be? Breaking free from this trap begins with awareness. You must first notice the reflex. The next time you feel insulted, watch your body. Notice how your chest tightens, how your breath shortens, how your mind races to find words of defense. This is the storm gathering. Pause and observe it. Do not judge yourself, do not force it away, just notice. The awareness itself is the first crack in the trap. For when you see the reaction forming, you are no longer fully controlled by it. You have created space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies your freedom. That freedom is a choice, and like all choices, it must be made again and again. Wisdom grows through practice. Each time you resist the urge to react, you strengthen a muscle that was once weak. At first, it feels unnatural, even uncomfortable to remain silent when you are attacked. The ego protests, demanding to be defended. But over time, you begin to see the results. The storm that once consumed your day now passes in minutes. The stone thrown at your boat no longer delays your journey. The neon signs of provocation still flash, but you walk past them without pause. Slowly, you reclaim control of your life. Reaction is the great thief of peace, but it does not have to be. We cannot stop others from provoking us, but we can stop ourselves from being provoked. We cannot silence every flashing sign, but we can decide which ones deserve our gaze. We cannot prevent storms from forming, but we can refuse to step into them. This is the heart of wisdom, knowing that not every trigger deserves a response, not every fight deserves a warrior, not every insult deserves a reply. And so, the next time you feel yourself pulled into the trap of reaction, remember the boat, remember the storm, remember the neon lights of Times Square. Ask yourself, is this stone worth stopping my journey for? Is this storm worth the wreckage it will leave behind? Is this flashing sign worth my gaze? Or shall I keep walking? In the asking, you will find your answer. In the silence that follows, you will find your power. Reaction is one of the most subtle prisons human beings live inside. It feels like freedom because we believe we are defending ourselves, but in truth it often steals the very freedom we are fighting to preserve. Think of how often an entire day is hijacked by a single moment of reaction. A sharp word from a coworker in the morning festers until evening. A small disagreement at breakfast grows into a cold silence at night. Our mood shifts, our energy drains, and all the while the original trigger was small, fleeting, almost meaningless. What caused the real damage was not the trigger itself, but our reaction to it. The conditioning runs so deep that we confuse reaction with identity. If someone questions our choices, we feel attacked not in action but in self. A criticism of our work feels like a criticism of our worth. This is why reaction feels so urgent. We are trying to protect who we think we are. But if we look closer, what we defend so fiercely is often only the ego, the fragile story of self we carry. And in defending that story, we hand over our calm to others. We become like marionettes pulled by invisible strings, mistaking movement for control. Visualize Times Square again. The flashing signs, the endless calls for your attention. Each one demands that you turn your head, that you give your eyes and thoughts to it. If you try to respond to them all, you would collapse from exhaustion. Reaction works the same way. The provocations of life are neon lights, and the more we chase them, the more depleted we become. Wisdom is realizing that you can walk through the square with your gaze steady, choosing where to look, choosing what deserves your attention. To make this practical, imagine a storm rolling over the ocean. The waves crash violently, but deep beneath the surface, the water remains still. We are meant to live from that depth, but reaction keeps us at the surface, tossed and turned by every gust of wind. When you learn to remain still, you begin to experience life differently. Arguments no longer pull you under. Insults no longer cut as deeply. The storm rages, but your anchor holds. Reaction also feeds a dangerous cycle in society. Entire industries thrive on it. Media designed to provoke, political rhetoric crafted to divide, digital platforms engineered for outrage. Every time we react, we feed that cycle. We keep the storm alive. But when we step out, when we pause, when we choose not to engage, the cycle weakens. Our silence is not just personal strength. It is resistance against a culture of noise. It is a refusal to let others decide the state of our minds. This does not mean indifference. It does not mean apathy. There are moments where response is necessary, where voice is required. But wisdom is the ability to know the difference. Not every spark must be met with fire. Not every insult is a call to arms. Not every disagreement is a war. Sometimes the strongest choice you can make is to do nothing, to let the neon light flash without turning your head, to let the storm roar while you remain still. Try this in your own life. The next time someone provokes you, do not answer immediately. Imagine you are the boat midstream. See the stone thrown from the shore. Feel the temptation to stop and throw it back. And then imagine continuing forward, oars steady, journey uninterrupted. The stone falls harmlessly into the water, forgotten. You keep your course, you keep your peace. This is the lesson. Reaction is not strength. It is surrender. The real strength is in restraint, in the pause, in the silence that refuses to be pulled into every storm. Wisdom is knowing that not every trigger deserves your energy. And when you live by that wisdom, you discover something extraordinary. Most of what you thought you needed to fight was never worth fighting at all. There is a paradox hidden inside reaction. It feels like we are asserting control, but in reality, we are giving it away. When we lash out, defend, or argue endlessly, we are letting someone else dictate the rhythm of our emotions. They speak, and we dance. They provoke, and we perform. Reaction is nothing more than obedience in disguise. The true tragedy is not that someone provokes us, but that we so willingly allow ourselves to be moved by their hand. This pattern is everywhere. Picture a crowded subway in New York City. A stranger bumps into you roughly, mutters under their breath. Instantly, you feel the surge of heat rising in your chest. You are tempted to answer, to snap back, to prove you will not be disrespected. But what happens if you give in? A moment's reaction can escalate into shouting or worse. You carry that tension home, replaying it in your mind long after the train ride is over. That one bump has stolen an entire evening of peace. This is how reaction works. It multiplies small sparks into great fires, and the cost is always greater than the gain. We forget that provocations are not commands. They are invitations. The rude driver invites you to rage. The sarcastic colleague invites you to argue. The anonymous comment online invites you to defend your worth. None of these are obligations. You have the freedom to decline. But reaction tricks us into believing we have no choice. It whispers that to remain silent is cowardice, that to walk away is defeat. And so we accept every invitation. And every time we do, we hand over a piece of ourselves. The boat metaphor reveals this with piercing clarity. Life is meant to move forward. We are designed to flow, to grow, to travel toward meaning. But each time we stop to throw back stones, we delay our own journey. The river does not stop flowing. It moves with or without us. Only we lose by halting. Only we waste the current that was carrying us forward. Imagine where you might be today if you had not stopped for every stone. Imagine the distance you could have traveled had you kept rowing instead of fighting shadows along the shore. Reaction does more than waste time. It corrodes relationships. How many friendships have ended not because of deep betrayal, but because of small arguments left unchecked? How many families are divided by decades of petty reactions, each side convinced they were right in every small dispute? Entire communities, even nations, have been torn apart by reaction, each provocation met with greater provocation, until the original issue is forgotten and only hostility remains. The world's greatest conflicts are mirrors of our smallest ones. What begins as a whisper of disagreement can roar into a storm when fueled by reaction. To live differently, we must see reaction for what it truly is, a trap. The bait is pride, the hook is ego, and the cost is peace. When you recognize this, you begin to choose differently. You begin to see that silence is not weakness but wisdom, that restraint is not defeat but discipline. You discover that ignoring is not avoidance but alignment with your greater purpose. And once you taste this freedom, it becomes easier to choose again. Practice this. The next time you feel insulted, close your eyes for a single breath. Ask yourself, if I respond, what will I gain? If I stay silent, what will I keep? Almost always, the answer reveals itself. Reaction wins you nothing lasting. Silence preserves everything that matters. Reaction thrives on urgency. It tells you that you must answer now, that you cannot wait, that the window for defense will close if you do not act. But urgency is an illusion. Very few things in life demand an instant reaction. In fact, the most important words we ever speak are usually those we have considered carefully. Give yourself permission to pause. Allow time to dissolve the urgency. What feels unbearable in the heat of the moment often becomes irrelevant after a night's sleep. The trap of reaction will not disappear overnight. It is a habit built over years, and habits take time to undo, but each small victory matters. Each time you resist, you loosen the grip. Each pause is a brick removed from the walls of the prison. And one day you will look back and realize that the walls have crumbled completely, that you are no longer living at the mercy of every provocation, but at the command of your own peace. Think of Times Square once more. The lights are still flashing. The voices are still calling. But now you walk differently. You do not turn your head at every sign. You do not stumble at every call. You keep walking, steady, focused, alive. This is the image of a life free from the trap of reaction. The world is noisy, but you are no longer its captive. The storms rage, but you remain at depth. The stones are thrown, but your boat sails on. This is wisdom. This is strength. This is freedom. To see the trap, to resist the bait, to choose silence over noise, that is the way out. And the moment you step out, you will realize what reaction had hidden all along, that peace was never outside you, never dependent on winning arguments or proving your worth. Peace was always within you, waiting for you to stop giving it away. Part 3. Ego vs. Peace. The human ego is perhaps the most cunning force within us. It wears many masks, convincing us it is our ally while quietly stealing our peace. Ego whispers in our ear that we must always be right, that we must win every argument, that our value depends on the approval of others. It tells us that silence is weakness, that forgiveness is foolish, and that yielding is defeat. And because we believe these whispers, we become trapped in endless battles that serve no purpose other than to inflate a fragile self-image. The cost is heavy: sleepless nights, strained relationships, and a mind that never finds rest. From childhood, we are told to defend ourselves, to prove our worth, to never let others walk over us. While some of this teaching helps us set boundaries, most of it conditions us to believe that our identity is under constant threat. When someone disagrees with us, the ego panics. When someone criticizes us, the ego feels attacked. When someone ignores us, the ego screams for attention. Each reaction becomes less about the truth of the situation and more about protecting this delicate structure we call me. But here is the deeper truth. Peace and ego cannot live in the same room. Ego feeds on noise. Peace thrives in silence. Ego demands recognition. Peace requires no witness. Ego is restless, always searching for validation. Peace is still, needing nothing outside itself. The moment ego takes control, peace is lost. And the moment peace is chosen, ego begins to dissolve. Consider the Buddhist parable of the gift. A man is insulted in public, yet instead of retaliating, he smiles and walks away. A bystander asks why he did not respond, and the man answers, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to take it, to whom does the gift belong?" The insult was the gift, the ego's invitation to conflict. By refusing it, he kept his peace. The insult remained with the one who gave it. Ego would have demanded retaliation. Peace chose silence. In our daily lives, we face these invitations constantly. A colleague undermines our work in a meeting. Ego rises, ready to lash back, to prove our value in front of everyone. But what if we pause? What if we remember that our worth is not determined by their opinion? By choosing peace, we remain calm, perhaps responding later with clarity instead of anger. The meeting ends without chaos, and our mind remains unshaken. The colleague's comment passes like a cloud across the sky. The ego wanted to fight. Peace allowed us to rise above. The ego is like a fire that constantly needs fuel. It consumes every disagreement, every criticism, every slight, and demands more. The more we feed it, the bigger it grows. But peace is like water, quiet, steady, nourishing. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, available to anyone willing to let go of the fire. Yet letting go is terrifying to the ego. It tells us that without defense we will disappear, that without recognition we will be nothing. But look deeper. Has chasing recognition ever brought lasting satisfaction? Has proving yourself in arguments ever created real joy? The ego always wants more because it can never be satisfied. Peace, on the other hand, asks for nothing because it is already complete. Imagine yourself standing in Paris near the Seine, watching the water flow quietly beneath the bridges. The city is alive with noise, traffic, conversation, music echoing from cafes, but the river remains steady, moving at its own pace, untouched by the chaos around it. This is the difference between ego and peace. Ego is the city noise, demanding, restless, never still. Peace is the river, flowing quietly, carrying life forward without needing to announce itself. When we identify with the noise, we suffer. When we align with the river, we are free. One of the greatest illusions ego creates is that victory in arguments equals strength. We feel triumphant when we silence another, when we win the last word, when we see someone else shrink before us. But what happens after? The moment fades, the triumph dissolves, and we are left searching for the next battle. The cycle repeats endlessly. Peace breaks this cycle. It teaches that real strength is not needing to win, not needing to prove, not needing to be acknowledged. Real strength is walking away from a battle without losing yourself. To practice peace in the face of ego requires vigilance. Each time you feel the urge to defend, pause and ask, is this my truth that needs protecting, or is this my ego demanding recognition? Often, you will find it is the latter. Your truth remains true whether or not it is accepted. Your worth remains intact whether or not it is recognized. The ego cannot accept this, but peace can. Start small. The next time someone disagrees with you, resist the urge to argue immediately. Instead, listen fully even if you know they are wrong. Feel the pull of the ego demanding that you correct them and then let it pass. Notice how the silence feels, not weak but spacious. The disagreement ends more quickly, the relationship remains intact, and you discover that your peace was worth more than your pride. Over time, this practice becomes second nature. The ego still rises, but you no longer obey it, you choose peace instead. In truth, ego and peace are both available in every moment. The path you choose will shape the quality of your life. If you follow ego, you will live in endless conflict, always defending, always chasing validation. If you follow peace, you will live with clarity, contentment, and strength that no insult can shake. The choice is simple but not easy. It requires awareness, courage, and the willingness to let go of the need to be right. But imagine the freedom. Imagine no longer being dragged into every argument, no longer feeling the sting of every insult, no longer wasting energy proving what was already true. Imagine walking through life with the calm of a mountain, the stillness of a river, the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth cannot be given or taken by anyone. This is the gift of peace. This is the liberation that comes when the ego no longer rules. And so the next time your ego rises, remember this. You have nothing to prove, nothing to defend, nothing to win. You already are enough. Choose peace, and you will discover a strength greater than any victory, a freedom wider than any argument, and a joy deeper than any recognition. The ego is a restless architect. It builds elaborate towers of identity out of opinions, victories, and recognition. But those towers are fragile, collapsing the moment someone questions us, ignores us, or disagrees. Peace, by contrast, does not build towers, it plants roots. Where ego reaches upward for validation, peace grows downward into stillness. Where ego craves to be seen, peace is content to simply be. Ego always lives in comparison. It says, I am better than this person, or I must not appear weaker than that one. Peace has no need for comparison because it does not measure worth at all. A mountain does not compare itself to another mountain. It simply stands. A river does not compare itself to another river. It simply flows. This is the difference between living by ego and living by peace. One is constant tension, the other is effortless being. Think about how many conflicts in your life were not about truth, but about ego. A spouse forgets a small task, and instead of calmly addressing it, ego demands we escalate, because being right is more important than being connected. A colleague offers a suggestion, and ego interprets it as criticism, starting a silent rivalry that poisons cooperation. Even in casual conversations, ego waits for opportunities to prove superiority, interrupting, correcting, boasting. Peace would have smiled and let the moment pass, but ego cannot bear to be unseen. The irony is that ego pretends to protect us, but it actually exposes us. The louder we defend, the more fragile we appear. The more we boast, the more insecure we seem. Ego insists on being fed, but every meal only makes it hungrier. Peace, however, is never hungry. It is fullness itself. It asks for nothing, and so it cannot be taken away. Imagine yourself walking through Kyoto's ancient gardens. The world outside the walls is filled with noise, traffic, demands. But within the garden there is a pond, so still it reflects the trees and sky perfectly. A single stone dropped into the water creates ripples, but they fade quickly and the stillness returns. Ego is the stone. It disturbs, it agitates. It insists on leaving a mark. Peace is the pond. It absorbs without losing itself, returning always to calm. The path to peace requires us to see ego clearly. This is difficult because ego hides behind noble disguises. It says, I am defending the truth, when in fact we are defending our pride. It says, I am protecting justice, when in fact we are seeking control. It says, I just want to be understood, when in fact we cannot tolerate being disagreed with. To live in peace, we must ask ourselves, what am I truly defending here? Is it truth or is it ego? When you begin to see ego for what it is, its grip weakens. You realize that silence is not a loss, that walking away is not surrender, that not having the last word does not diminish you. In fact, it expands you. Peace is found not in winning battles, but in transcending them. It is the spaciousness of a heart no longer chained to constant defense. Try this practice. The next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, if I let this go, what do I lose? And if I let this go, what do I gain? Almost always, what you lose is only ego and what you gain is peace. Peace is not weakness. It is mastery. It is the ability to remain steady when others push, to remain kind when others provoke, to remain silent when others demand noise. The ego may clamor for attention, but peace teaches us that the deepest strength needs no witness. It is enough simply to be. And so the choice lies before us in every moment, ego or peace. Do we defend the fragile towers that crumble with every wind, or do we plant the roots that hold through every storm? Do we chase recognition that disappears like smoke, or do we rest in a stillness that cannot be taken away? Choose peace, and you will discover a freedom the ego can never give you, the freedom of no longer needing to win, no longer needing to be right, no longer needing to prove. In that freedom lies the life you have been searching for all along. Ego thrives in the shadows of insecurity. It convinces us that unless we defend, unless we prove, unless we conquer, we are unworthy. But peace does not operate on such fragile ground. Peace is rooted in the knowledge that worth is not earned by victory. It is inherent. When we forget this, ego drives us to exhaustion, compelling us to fight battles that were never ours to begin with. Consider how many arguments you have entered in your life where, at the end, nothing was truly gained. You may have won the last word, silenced your opponent, or forced them into retreat, yet what remained? a hollow satisfaction that quickly faded, replaced by tension, resentment, and distance. Ego declared victory, but peace was nowhere to be found. Now contrast this with the rare times you chose not to engage, when you allowed silence to be your answer. How light you felt, how quickly the situation dissolved, how intact your spirit remained. In those moments, peace, not ego, was the true victor. Ego is the great storyteller, weaving endless narratives about who we are and who others must believe us to be. It insists that if someone disrespects us, our identity is shattered. It demands applause when we succeed and reassurance when we falter. But peace requires no story. Peace exists even in failure, even in disrespect, even in obscurity. It does not need validation to be real. That is why peace endures when ego collapses. Picture yourself standing in the silence of Yosemite Valley at dawn. The granite cliffs tower above, ancient and unmoved. Birds begin to sing, the light spreads across the sky, and for a moment you feel the weight of timelessness. The cliffs are not seeking applause, not demanding recognition, not comparing themselves to mountains elsewhere in the world. They simply are. This is the essence of peace, strength that does not need to announce itself. Ego would try to carve its name into the stone. Peace is the stone itself. The challenge is that the world often rewards ego and ignores peace. Promotions, attention, and fame often go to those who shout the loudest, demand the most, defend themselves most aggressively. But these rewards are fleeting. They vanish the moment someone louder appears, the moment the crowd grows bored. Peace, however, is not dependent on the crowd. It does not fade when attention shifts. It remains constant, available in every breath if we only choose it. To live by peace requires humility. Humility is the willingness to let go of the need to be superior, the courage to say, I do not need to prove myself here. This is not weakness. It is the recognition that proving ourselves in every moment is a waste of life. Humility does not mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. And when you do, space opens within you for peace to take root. Imagine a conversation with a friend. They say something hurtful, perhaps unintentionally. Ego rises, demanding you respond sharply to return the wound. But if you pause, if you look beyond the words to the heart behind them, you may see that they were speaking from their own pain. If you respond from ego, the distance between you widens. If you respond from peace, perhaps even with kindness, the friendship deepens. Peace builds bridges where ego burns them. This is why spiritual teachers across traditions emphasize the practice of letting go of ego. The Buddha taught that attachment to self is the root of suffering. Jesus spoke of the meek inheriting the earth. Stoic philosophers urged indifference to insult. All of these point to the same truth. Peace is found when ego is released. To hold on to ego is to clutch thorns, cutting ourselves while believing we are holding power. To release ego is to open the hand and feel the freedom of air. But how do we do this in practice? It begins with awareness. The next time you feel the sting of criticism, pause and ask, what part of me is hurt right now? Is it my true self or my ego? Almost always it is the ego. The true self, the soul, the deeper awareness within you is untouchable. It does not diminish when criticized, nor does it expand when praised. It simply is steady and whole. When you recognize this, the grip of ego loosens and peace begins to emerge. Another practice is gratitude. Ego cannot survive in the presence of gratitude because gratitude shifts focus outward. When you give thanks for a meal, for a sunrise, for the breath in your lungs, ego has no place to stand. It is too busy demanding recognition for itself. Gratitude quiets the ego and nourishes peace. A third practice is service. Ego asks, what about me? Service asks, what about others? When you help, when you give, when you lift others without seeking reward, ego shrinks and peace expands. Service does not erase the self. It connects the self to something larger. It reminds us that we are not separate, not alone, not in competition. In service, peace finds fertile soil. Over time, you begin to see that peace is not passive. It is not the absence of action. It is active presence. the deliberate choice to live unshaken by the noise of ego. It is the decision to speak only when words are true, necessary, and kind. It is the discipline to walk away when arguments serve no purpose. It is the wisdom to remain calm when provoked, not because you lack a response, but because you know the response would cost you more than silence ever will. And so the battle between ego and peace is not fought once and for all. It is fought moment by moment, choice by choice. Every conversation, every insult, every opportunity for pride is a chance to choose. Will you feed the fire of ego, or will you rest in the stillness of peace? The more you choose peace, the easier it becomes. The fire fades, the stillness deepens, and life, once filled with conflict and noise, becomes spacious, clear, and free. This is the promise of peace, that beneath the endless demands of ego lies a life of quiet strength, a life where nothing external can shake you, where your worth is untouchable, your joy unbreakable, your freedom unshakable. Ego or peace, that is the choice before you. And the choice you make will shape the quality of your days, the depth of your relationships, and the clarity of your soul. Part 4. The Art of Non-Response. There is a quiet strength that few ever master, yet it transforms the entire fabric of life. It is not the strength of louder words or sharper arguments, but the discipline of holding back when everything inside you wants to strike. This is the art of non-response. In a world addicted to reaction, choosing not to reply is radical. It unsettles those who expect you to lash out. It disarms those who attempt to control you, and it preserves your inner calm like a fortress no storm can breach. Imagine someone standing before you, their voice raised, their anger spilling out in every word. They are casting hooks, waiting for you to bite. The trap is set. If you respond, they pull you into their storm. If you resist, they grow louder, more desperate, until finally their energy burns out. Your silence is not weakness. It is the refusal to play a game no one truly wins. Non-response is not avoidance but mastery. It is the deliberate choice to let your calmness speak louder than words ever could. Non-response has been mistaken for indifference, but there is nothing indifferent about it. It is an act of discipline, one that requires tremendous awareness. It is easy to react. It takes no effort to let anger carry you into conflict. But to pause, to remain still, to let another's words dissolve into silence, that is strength few possess. In silence, you prove that your peace cannot be bought, borrowed, or stolen. The world is saturated with noise, each voice demanding your attention, each conflict begging for your involvement. Online arguments rage endlessly, fueled by the compulsion to have the last word. Political debates spiral into hostility. Even in our personal lives, a careless comment can erupt into days of coldness. But the art of non-response offers another path. It asks, must you always answer? Must you always defend? Must you always explain? Or is there power in simply not being moved? Think of the image of a mountain. The wind may whip around it, clouds may cover it, rain may strike its surface, yet the mountain does not move. This is the essence of non-response. You feel the pressure of the storm, but you remain unmoved. You know that nothing is gained by shouting back at the wind. Nothing is lost by letting it pass. Modern life is filled with moments that test this art. A coworker sends an email dripping with passive aggression. Your instinct is to fire back, to defend your name. But non-response reminds you that not every message deserves your energy. Sometimes silence itself communicates more. It shows that you are not shaken, not reduced to the level of petness. The moment you refuse to engage, the dynamic shifts. Their provocation loses power, and your dignity remains intact. Even in family relationships, non-response has its place. Arguments that once would have escalated can dissolve when one person chooses stillness over combat. A sarcastic remark can end with silence rather than another wound. Non-response does not mean ignoring those we love. It means refusing to let every minor spark ignite into fire. In this restraint, we protect not only ourselves, but also the bonds we wish to preserve. But the art of non-response is not only about avoiding conflict. It is about cultivating freedom. When you master it, you begin to see how little control others actually have over you. Their insults, their criticisms, their attempts to provoke, all of it loses power when you choose not to answer. You are no longer at the mercy of every passing word. You become steady, clear, unshakable. To practice non-response, start with awareness. Notice the urge rising within you, the tightening of the chest, the quickening of the breath, the rush of words forming in your mind. Pause before they leave your lips. Ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Will this argument lead anywhere, or will it only drain me? More often than not, you will realize that silence is the better answer. You can train this through simple exercises. When faced with a provocative comment online, resist the urge to type back. When tempted to interrupt in conversation, choose instead to listen fully. When anger burns hot, count to 10 before speaking. Each act of restraint strengthens the muscle of non-response. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes natural. The storm rages, but you no longer join it. There is an old saying, not every battle is worth fighting. The art of non-response takes this further. Not every battle even exists without your participation. Many conflicts dissolve the moment one side refuses to engage. The fishing line is cast, but no one bites. The fire is lit, but no one feeds it. The provocation falls silent, not because it was defeated, but because it was ignored. The ego will resist this practice. It will insist that silence makes you look weak, that non-response means surrender. But remember, the ego thrives on reaction. Peace thrives on stillness. Choosing silence does not mean you have lost. It means you value your well-being more than your pride. Real strength is not proven in arguments. It is revealed in restraint. Non-response is not about hiding from truth. There are moments when speaking up is necessary, when silence would enable harm or injustice. But these moments are rare compared to the endless small provocations that flood our lives. Wisdom is knowing the difference when your voice will bring light and when it will only add to the noise. And so, the art of non-response is not silence for its own sake. It is silence as strategy, silence as strength, silence as freedom. It is the recognition that your attention is sacred, your energy finite, your peace priceless. Not everything deserves your voice. Not every trigger deserves your reaction. The power of non-response lies in knowing this, and in living by it every day. The next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember the mountain, remember the pond, remember the calm beneath the waves. Stay still. Let their noise pass like wind through trees. Smile, breathe, and remain whole. That is the art of non-response, and it is a power that no one can take from you. Non-response is a discipline that at first feels unnatural. We are so accustomed to defending ourselves that silence feels like defeat. Yet if you look closely, you will see that silence is not losing. It is refusing to play a game that was never worth your time. Every argument asks for your participation, but participation is optional. When you choose not to respond, you reveal something extraordinary, that you are not a puppet for others to pull, not a vessel for their anger to fill, not a mirror for their chaos to see itself in. You are free. The world rarely teaches this lesson. From the moment we are children, we are told, don't let anyone talk to you like that. Stand up for yourself. Don't stay quiet when you're challenged. These teachings have value in moments of real danger or injustice, but they also condition us to believe that every slight must be answered, every insult defended against, every disagreement met with resistance. And so we grow into adults who mistake reaction for strength and silence for weakness. But the truth is inverted. The ones who can remain still are the ones who hold the deepest strength. Picture yourself in a storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes against your skin, thunder roars above. Instinct tells you to shout back, to fight the storm with your own voice. But what does that achieve? The storm does not listen. Your voice is drowned out. The more you rage, the more exhausted you become. Now imagine instead that you find shelter. You sit in stillness, listening, breathing, watching the storm play itself out. When it ends, you emerge calm, whole, at peace. That is non-response. It does not deny that storms exist. It simply refuses to let them consume you. In daily life, the storms are words, gestures, comments, and provocations. A coworker implies that you are not competent. A family member digs up an old mistake. A stranger online mocks your opinion. Each is a storm trying to pull you in. If you respond with anger, the storm grows. If you remain still, the storm dies on its own. You cannot control the weather, but you can control whether you walk into it or wait for it to pass. Consider how much energy we waste on needless battles. Entire evenings are ruined by arguments that began with a single careless word. Days are lost to replaying conversations in which we tried desperately to prove ourselves. Weeks are consumed by silent feuds with people we love, all because neither side was willing to let silence be the answer. What might we do with that energy if we preserved it? How much joy, creativity, and clarity could we reclaim if we practiced the art of non-response? Non-response is not passivity, it is strategy. Think of a skilled martial artist who does not block every strike, but instead steps aside, letting the opponent's energy exhaust itself. They know that reacting to every blow would only drain them, so they wait, they observe, they conserve. This is the essence of non-response, not to fight every battle, but to choose the battles that matter and to let the rest dissolve into nothingness. Times Square at night offers a perfect metaphor. The lights flash, the billboards scream, the noise clamors for your attention. If you tried to read every sign, listen to every voice, respond to every message, you would collapse from the overload. Yet people walk through calmly, their eyes steady, their steps directed toward where they need to go. This is non-response. The world will always flash signs at you, demanding your attention, demanding your energy. Wisdom is the ability to walk on, steady and unshaken, choosing where your focus belongs. To cultivate this discipline, start with small exercises. The next time someone sends you a provocative message, wait before replying, count your breaths. Ask yourself, what will this response add to my life? Will it bring clarity, connection, healing, or will it only fuel the fire? More often than not, silence will serve you better. Try this at work. When faced with an unfair remark in a meeting, instead of answering immediately, write down your thoughts. By the time the meeting ends, you may realize that no reply is necessary, or that a calm, measured response later will carry far more weight. Another exercise is to practice intentional silence each day. Sit for 5 minutes, not speaking, not reacting, simply observing the rise and fall of your breath. Notice how your mind craves to respond, even in silence, how it wants to chase thoughts, replay conversations, craft arguments. And notice how, when you choose not to follow those thoughts, they dissolve on their own. This is training for life. If you can resist reaction in the quiet of meditation, you will find it easier to resist in the noise of the world. Non-response also protects relationships. Think of how many friendships or families have been torn apart by words spoken in anger, words that, if left unsaid, would have faded away. Silence prevents wounds that cannot be undone. It offers space for emotions to cool, for understanding to emerge, for love to survive. Non-response is not withdrawal, it is an act of preservation. It is saying, I value this bond too much to let ego destroy it. Of course, there are moments when silence is not the answer. When injustice is being committed, when harm is being done, when truth must be spoken to prevent suffering, then silence becomes complicity. The art of non-response is not silence for its own sake, but the wisdom to know when silence preserves peace and when voice defends justice. It is the ability to discern the difference, moment by moment. What makes this art so powerful is that it shifts the balance of power. Those who provoke thrive on reaction. When you refuse to react, you deny them what they seek. They become unsettled, uncertain, and eventually powerless. You, on the other hand, remain calm, steady, in control. This is not avoidance. It is mastery. Non-response does not come overnight. At first, it feels unbearable to remain silent, to walk away, to let go. The ego demands recognition. The body craves release. But with practice, silence becomes natural. The storm rises and you no longer feel compelled to enter it. The hooks are cast and you no longer bite. The bait is offered and you smile as you walk past. Each victory, however small, strengthens the muscle of restraint. And what do you gain from this art? Freedom. Freedom from being controlled by others. Freedom from endless cycles of conflict. Freedom from wasting your energy on what does not matter. With non-response, you reclaim your time, your peace, your life. So when the next storm comes, and it will, pause, breathe. Remember the mountain unmoved by wind, the pond unbroken by ripples, the walker in Times Square ignoring the flashing lights. Remember that silence is not nothing. It is everything. It is strength, it is clarity, it is peace. That is the art of non-response, and once you master it, you will never wish to live without it again. Mastering the art of non-response is like discovering a hidden key, one that unlocks the door to emotional freedom. Most people never find this key because they are convinced that life demands constant answers. Every insult, every disagreement, every criticism feels like a summons to battle. But wisdom reveals that life is not a courtroom, and you are not on trial. You do not need to defend your every action or prove your every choice. The need to answer is an illusion, and non-response is the freedom to step outside that illusion. Think of how arguments trap us. A partner makes a sharp remark and instantly we respond. Their words escalate, ours grow louder, until soon the argument is about something far removed from the original spark. At the end, neither side feels heard, both feel wounded, and peace has evaporated. But imagine instead that when the first remark landed, you remained still. Not cold, not dismissive, but quiet. The silence would have disarmed the escalation. It would have created space for reflection rather than reaction. The fire would have gone out for lack of fuel. Non-response is the decision to let silence do the work that words cannot. It is important to remember that silence is not the same as suppression. Suppression buries feelings, where they ferment and eventually explode. Non-response is different. It acknowledges the feeling but refuses to let it control the action. It is the ability to feel the heat of anger rise within you and still choose to breathe, to wait, to remain unmoved. This is why non-response is not passivity, it is power under control. We live in a culture that prizes quickness, instant messages, instant replies, instant reactions. But the greatest strength often lies in the pause. The pause gives space for wisdom to emerge, for emotions to settle, for perspective to widen. Non-response is the practice of expanding that pause until it becomes second nature. It is the ability to say, I will not let urgency dictate my peace. Consider again the metaphor of Times Square. Each billboard flashes, demanding your gaze. If you gave in to every demand, your eyes would dart endlessly, your mind would fragment, your focus would dissolve. But when you choose where to look, when you refuse the pull of every flashing sign, you reclaim your vision. In the same way, non-response is the decision to keep your focus steady amid the endless provocations of life. You choose where to direct your attention, and in that choice, you preserve your energy. Non-response is also an act of respect for yourself. It is saying, my peace matters more than my pride. My energy is too valuable to be spent on arguments that lead nowhere. My dignity is not up for negotiation in every petty exchange. When you live this way, people begin to notice. They may not always understand, but they will feel the gravity of your presence. They will realize that you cannot be baited into every storm, that your silence is not emptiness but strength. Practice this in small moments. When you hear gossip, resist the urge to join in. When someone posts a provocative opinion online, let it pass without comment. When a colleague tries to draw you into conflict, answer with calm or not at all. These moments may feel insignificant, but they build a habit, and that habit becomes a way of being. Slowly, you transform from someone tossed by every wave into someone steady, unshakable, rooted. And what happens when you live this way? Relationships shift. Conflicts dissolve more quickly. Your mind grows clearer. Creativity blossoms in the space once occupied by arguments. You begin to feel lighter, freer, more in control of your life. Non-response does not erase challenges, but it changes your relationship with them. You stop giving them power they do not deserve. The final beauty of non-response is that it is available to everyone, everywhere, at any moment. You do not need wealth, education, or special status to practice it. All you need is awareness, the ability to notice the urge to react, and courage, the strength to choose silence instead. With each choice, you step further into freedom. So the next time you feel the pull to answer, to defend, to fight, pause. Remember the mountain unmoved, the pond unbroken, the calm walker through flashing lights. Remember that silence is not nothing. It is everything. It is the quiet force that guards your peace, the discipline that preserves your dignity, the strength that no one can take from you. This is the art of non-response. Part 5. When to speak, when to stay silent. There is a rhythm to wisdom, a delicate balance that requires listening not only to the world around you but also to the quiet voice within. Life does not ask us to stay silent always, nor does it call us to speak in every moment. The true art lies in discernment, knowing when silence preserves peace and when words protect truth. This balance is not easy, for both extremes, constant silence and constant speaking, carry their dangers. Silence at the wrong time can enable harm. Words at the wrong time can deepen wounds. Wisdom lives in the space between. The Buddha offered a guiding principle, a compass that remains as relevant today as it was centuries ago. Before you speak, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If the answer is not yes to all 3, perhaps silence is the better choice. These questions act as a filter, distilling raw emotion into mindful action. They remind us that words have weight, and once released, they cannot be gathered back. Think of how many times words spoken in haste have caused harm. A sharp remark in an argument lingers long after the anger has cooled. A careless joke wounds someone more deeply than we imagined. A defensive response escalates a conflict that could have ended quietly. Each of these moments teaches the same lesson. Speaking without discernment is like throwing sparks in a dry forest. The fire spreads quickly, and regret follows in its wake. Yet silence is not always the answer. There are moments when silence is dangerous, when it becomes complicity in the face of injustice, cruelty, or abuse. To remain silent in such moments is to allow harm to continue unchallenged. Words, when rooted in truth, necessity, and kindness, can heal, protect, and guide. They can break cycles of violence, defend the vulnerable, and shine light into darkness. Silence may preserve peace in the small moments of insult or provocation, but words are required when silence would cost someone their safety or dignity. Picture standing on a bridge in Florence, looking out over the Arno River as it glitters in the evening light. Beneath you, the water flows steadily, carrying with it the weight of centuries. The city around you is filled with voices, tourists, vendors, laughter, and debate. Yet amid the noise, you notice that not every sound matters. Some voices carry wisdom, others are fleeting distractions. In this, the river offers a lesson. It carries only what merges with its flow and lets the rest fall away. So too must we carry only the words worth speaking, letting the rest dissolve into silence. The modern world complicates this balance. We are bombarded with demands to respond instantly, to comment, to post, to defend, to explain. The speed of communication pressures us into believing that silence equals ignorance, that waiting equals weakness. But the wise know that speed is not the same as clarity. A delayed response, chosen with care, carries far more weight than a rushed one. To pause before speaking is not to withhold, but to respect both yourself and the one who will hear your words. Knowing when to speak requires courage. It is easier to remain silent in the face of conflict, to avoid discomfort, to retreat into passivity. But silence that avoids responsibility is not peace, it is fear. True peace has the courage to speak when silence would betray truth. Imagine a friend lost in despair, their silence masking deep suffering. In such a moment, words are not only necessary, they are vital. To remain silent would be to abandon them, To speak gently, truthfully, kindly is to offer them a lifeline. And so the balance emerges. Speak when your words can heal, protect, or clarify. Stay silent when words would harm, inflame, or scatter. Speak when silence would allow harm to thrive. Stay silent when speaking would serve only ego. This is not a formula but a practice, one that grows with attention and reflection. One way to practice discernment is to imagine your words as seeds. Ask yourself, if I plant this seed, what will grow? Will it be a tree of shade and nourishment, offering comfort and strength? Or will it be a thorn bush, cutting and choking those around it? Silence is the refusal to plant seeds that bear poison. Speech is the deliberate planting of seeds that bear fruit. Another practice is to listen deeply. When in conversation, resist the urge to prepare your reply while the other speaks. Instead, give them your full presence. Often, in true listening, the need to respond dissolves. You realize that silence itself is the answer, and when you do speak, your words are fewer, clearer, and more meaningful. The beauty of this practice is that it creates harmony. In relationships, it prevents the accumulation of wounds born of careless words. In work, it fosters trust because people know that when you speak, your words are considered and sincere. In the wider world, it offers a model of communication rooted not in noise but in wisdom. The choice to speak or remain silent is one of the most powerful choices we make each day. It shapes our relationships, our communities, and our inner lives. When we master this balance, we no longer waste words or betray our silence. We learn to live in rhythm with truth, necessity, and kindness. We learn to let go of ego-driven speech and fear-driven silence. We learn to honor peace without sacrificing justice. And so, when you find yourself at the crossroads, whether to speak or to stay silent, pause. Ask the three questions. Picture the seeds. Listen deeply. Then choose. In that choice lies the path of wisdom, the balance of strength and gentleness, the harmony of ego and peace. To know when to speak and when to remain silent is not only an art, it is a way of living that transforms the soul and touches everyone around you. There are moments in life when silence is a gift, and there are moments when silence becomes a wound. To know the difference is one of the highest forms of wisdom. Every day we face countless crossroads, tiny decisions about whether to open our mouths or hold our peace. Often we decide in haste, speaking when we should have listened, staying quiet when we should have spoken. The art of discernment is learning to step back from that rush, to weigh the cost of words and the cost of silence, and to choose with clarity. Words are not neutral. They carry energy like stones thrown into water. Some ripple gently, spreading calm and reassurance. Others crash violently, sending shockwaves that disturb everything around them. To speak without awareness is to toss stones carelessly, not caring whom they strike. But when you begin to treat words as sacred, you realize that speech is an act of creation. It can build or destroy, heal or wound, connect or divide. Silence, too, is powerful. It can shelter, soothe, and calm. But in the wrong context, silence can betray, abandon, or even destroy trust. Take the example of injustice. History is filled with tragedies not only because of the voices of the cruel, but also because of the silence of the many. When harm is done before our eyes, when voices are silenced, when suffering is ignored, silence is no longer wisdom, it is complicity. To remain silent in such moments is to side with the oppressor. Speaking truth, even when uncomfortable, becomes a moral obligation. These are the moments when silence is a wound and words are the only path to healing. Now think of your personal life. How many arguments have you had where, in hindsight, silence would have saved you both? Perhaps you were tired, irritated, and a loved one said something careless. Ego demanded you respond. The words flew and the night was ruined. Later you realized that had you remained silent, just for a moment, the storm would have passed. The careless word would have dissolved, forgotten. Silence would have preserved peace, but words, poorly chosen, destroyed it. Knowing when to speak and when to stay silent requires courage in both directions. It takes courage to speak when silence is easier. It takes courage to stay silent when ego demands expression. Courage is the thread that weaves discernment into practice. Without it, we either lash out thoughtlessly or withdraw fearfully. With it, we find the balance that honors both truth and peace. Imagine walking through the streets of Rome at dusk. The air is filled with voices, music, footsteps echoing against ancient stone. Some voices are loud, demanding attention, but they fade quickly. Others are softer, yet they linger in the mind long after. The difference is not volume, but weight. Some words carry truth, necessity, and kindness. Others are empty noise. The wise know which is which. They do not waste energy amplifying the noise. They save their voice for the words that matter. In our modern world, the temptation to speak endlessly is everywhere. Social media invites us to share every thought, every opinion, every reaction. The pressure to post, to comment, to explain ourselves is constant. Yet wisdom may ask us to stay silent. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every opinion needs to be shared. The world does not require your commentary on every subject. Sometimes silence is the most powerful contribution you can make, especially when words would add to the noise but not to the light. At the same time, there are moments when a single sentence can change a life. A word of encouragement to someone who feels unseen, a clear no when boundaries are crossed, a gentle but firm truth when someone is harming themselves or others. These are not easy words to speak, but they are necessary. They carry weight, and because they are rare, they are remembered. Silence here would not be peace, it would be neglect. How, then, do we cultivate the wisdom to know the difference? The answer lies in pausing. In the pause, you listen to yourself, to the situation, to the deeper truth beneath the noise. In that pause, you can ask the questions: is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And another, will silence here serve peace, or will it allow harm? These questions act like lanterns, illuminating the dark path of decision. Without them, we stumble. With them, we walk with clarity. Think of your words as arrows. Once released, they cannot be recalled. If shot in anger, they wound. If shot carelessly, they may strike the wrong target, but if aimed with care, they can protect, uplift, and guide. The pause before speaking is the moment of aiming. Silence is choosing not to shoot at all when the arrow is not needed. Words are choosing to release only when they will serve. A practice to strengthen this discernment is journaling. At the end of each day, reflect. Where did I speak today? Did my words bring healing or harm? Where did I remain silent? Did my silence preserve peace or betray truth? Over time, patterns emerge. You will see where you speak too much, where you speak too little, and where you found the balance. Awareness grows, and with it, wisdom. Another practice is deep listening. When you are in conversation, focus not on what you will say next, but on truly hearing the other person. Often, in listening, you realize that no response is needed at all. Your presence itself is the answer. And when you do speak, your words will be fewer, but they will carry greater power. Ultimately, the art of knowing when to speak and when to stay silent is about alignment. It is aligning your voice with truth, your silence with peace, and your choices with love. It is refusing to let ego decide for you and instead letting wisdom guide you. So when you stand at the crossroads, whether to speak or to be silent, remember this: silence and speech are not opposites but partners. One protects, the other heals. One preserves, the other guides. Used with discernment, they weave a life of clarity, compassion, and strength. And in that balance lies true freedom. Words are threads that weave the fabric of human connection. Used with care, they bind us closer, creating warmth and trust. Used recklessly, they unravel bonds, leaving holes that may never be repaired. Silence, too, is a thread. It can hold space for understanding, or it can leave emptiness where presence was needed. The art of life is not in choosing one over the other, but in learning how to stitch them together with discernment. Consider the workplace. A leader who never speaks leaves their team adrift, uncertain and unsupported. Yet a leader who speaks constantly, filling every silence with their own voice, stifles creativity and discourages others from contributing. The wise leader knows when to step back, allowing silence to invite voices into the room, and when to speak, offering clarity and vision. Their words carry weight because they are not wasted. Their silence empowers because it is intentional. In friendships, the balance is equally delicate. There are moments when a friend shares their pain and what they need is not advice but listening. Silence here is a form of compassion. To interrupt with words, however wise, may steal from them the chance to feel heard. But in another moment, when silence would feel like abandonment, words are essential. I'm here for you, you're not alone. One sentence can lift a burden that silence would only deepen. Family life offers countless examples. Parents may feel the urge to lecture at every mistake, to fill the air with correction. But silence sometimes teaches more than words. A calm presence after a child's outburst often restores peace more effectively than any argument. Yet when silence becomes avoidance, when parents do not speak truth about boundaries or values, children are left without guidance. In both extremes, wisdom is lost. The art is to know when to hold silence as patience and when to speak as love. The spiritual traditions of the world agree on this balance. In Buddhism, right speech is a pillar of the Eightfold Path. Speak what is true, beneficial, and timely. In Christianity, the Book of Proverbs declares that a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. In Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius wrote that if something is not both necessary and kind, it is better left unsaid. These teachings converge on the same truth. Words are medicine when chosen well, poison when spoken carelessly. Modern life, however, makes discernment harder. The pace of communication leaves little room for pause. Emails demand quick replies, text messages expect instant answers, social media pressures us to react immediately. In this climate, silence is often misunderstood. A delayed reply is seen as disinterest, a lack of posting as ignorance, a pause as weakness. But if we allow ourselves to be ruled by urgency, we forfeit wisdom. The pause is where wisdom grows. Non-response, when chosen, can be as powerful as speech. Think of your life as a garden. Words are water, silence is sunlight. Too much water drowns the roots, too little starves them. Too much sunlight scorches the leaves, too little weakens the plant. The balance of both is what allows growth. Relationships, communities, and even our own souls require this balance. The right word at the right time nourishes. The right silence at the right time strengthens. Here is a practice to cultivate discernment. Before you speak, imagine your words echoing in the mind of the one who hears them. What will they feel? Will your words bring clarity, kindness, or healing? Or will they bring confusion, pain, or division? If your words will wound unnecessarily, let silence be your gift. If your silence will wound by absence, let words be your gift. Another practice is to honor the weight of silence itself. In conversation, resist the impulse to fill every gap. Allow pauses. Let silence breathe. Often in the quiet afterwards, the deepest truths arise, not from your mouth, but from the heart of the other. Silence is not emptiness. It is space where understanding is born. When you learn this balance, you transform the way you live. You no longer waste words defending ego or proving worth. You no longer waste silence avoiding responsibility. You speak when truth calls you, and you remain silent when peace requires it. Your relationships deepen, your mind clears, your presence strengthens. People begin to trust your words because they know they are chosen with care. They begin to trust your silence because they know it is not neglect but wisdom. And so, the invitation is simple but profound. Let every word be weighed and let every silence be chosen. Speak when your voice can heal, protect, or guide. Stay silent when your voice would wound, distract, or inflame. In that balance, you will find not only harmony with others but also harmony within yourself. Part 6. Strategies to disarm conflict. Conflict is inevitable in human life, but escalation is not. Most of the fires that burn through our relationships, workplaces, and communities are fueled not by the spark itself, but by the fuel we add with our words and actions. To disarm conflict is to choose not to add fuel, to replace fire with calm, to use strategies that transform heat into space for peace. This is not about pretending tension doesn't exist. It is about learning to respond in ways that cool the flames rather than feed them. One of the simplest strategies is to replace fuel with neutral words. Imagine someone confronts you with hostility, their voice sharp, their accusations pointed. The instinct is to push back, to defend, to prove them wrong. But every defensive word is like gasoline poured on the flame. Instead, try saying, "I see your point," or "I hear what you're saying." These neutral words don't mean you agree, they mean you are refusing to escalate, they shift the energy. The other person expects resistance, and when they don't get it, their fire begins to lose strength. Neutral words act like water, softening the heat until it can no longer burn. Humor is another powerful tool. Laughter, when used with compassion and not at someone's expense, has the ability to dissolve tension in an instant. Think of arguments you've had that suddenly turned when someone cracked a gentle joke, and the weight in the room lifted. Humor interrupts the seriousness of conflict, reminding everyone of their shared humanity. It says, "We are still connected even here." But humor must be used carefully. It must never belittle or mock, for that only deepens the wound. The right kind of humor is light, inclusive, a bridge back to warmth. Creative strategies also help. Sometimes the best way to disarm conflict is not through words at all, but through movement, space, and change. If tension rises, go for a walk together. The rhythm of walking side by side shifts energy. The body moves, the breath deepens, and perspective widens. In places like Central Park, where trees and open skies invite calm, arguments lose their edge. Walking meditation offers the same gift. Step after mindful step, letting the energy of anger dissolve into the ground beneath your feet. Writing is another strategy. When voices are too sharp, put thoughts on paper instead. Writing slows the mind, forces clarity, and transforms raw emotion into measured expression. A letter written in calm reflection can resolve what a shouting match never will. Sometimes the strategy is as simple as shifting the environment. Arguments thrive in enclosed spaces where tension bounces back and forth like echoes. Step outside. Sit in a cafe. Change the scenery, and the argument loses its grip. Conflict often feels permanent in the moment, but when the setting changes, so too does the emotional landscape. One of the most practical tools is what we can call the response reset. It is the discipline of waiting 24 hours before responding to heated issues. Anger burns hot in the moment but almost always cools with time. A night of sleep, a day of distance, and suddenly what felt urgent feels smaller, less consuming. By waiting, you allow clarity to return. You prevent words spoken in heat, words you cannot take back. In that pause, peace has a chance to re-enter. At the heart of all these strategies is a simple truth. Protecting peace is more valuable than proving right. Too often we sacrifice peace on the altar of ego, determined to win the argument, to be acknowledged, to have the last word. But what does victory bring if the relationship is fractured, if the room is filled with bitterness, if our own mind is restless long after? Peace is the greater treasure. When we learn to value it above the shallow satisfaction of being right, our choices shift. We no longer fight every battle. We no longer waste energy on petty disputes. We save our strength for love, for growth, for what truly matters. Conflict will always exist, but escalation does not have to. By choosing neutral words, by inviting humor, by walking instead of shouting, by writing instead of lashing out, by waiting instead of rushing, we disarm conflict. We transform moments of division into opportunities for connection. We discover that strength is not in fighting, but in preserving peace. And in that discovery, we find the freedom to live more lightly, more kindly, more whole. Conflict does not begin as a roaring fire. It begins as a spark. A single misunderstood word, a careless tone, a forgotten task, small embers that, when met with anger or defensiveness, flare into something larger. The strategies to disarm conflict are not about denying the spark, but about refusing to fan it into flames. Each of us carries within us the tools to calm the heat. Words that soothe instead of sting, gestures that invite peace instead of division, choices that honor relationship over ego. The first tool is language. Words have the power to escalate or dissolve in an instant. When someone challenges you saying, "You never listen," it is easy to snap back, "That's not true." But notice what happens. Both sides are now entrenched, both are ready to defend. Instead, imagine answering with, "I hear that you feel unheard, tell me more." Suddenly the tone shifts. The other person is startled, they were prepared for battle, but what they received was space. The conflict has been disarmed not by winning but by refusing to fight. Neutral words like, "I see your point," or "That's one way to look at it," are bridges instead of barricades. They acknowledge without surrendering, opening the possibility of understanding. Humor, when used wisely, is another powerful bridge. A shared laugh is like oxygen entering a suffocated room. It breaks the tension, reminding everyone that they are more than this moment of anger. Think of two friends arguing heatedly over something trivial. Then one says, with a grin, "Look at us, two adults fighting like kids over who left the lights on." The absurdity draws laughter and the fight dissolves. Humor shifts the lens from conflict to connection, but it must be gentle. Sarcasm or mockery only pour oil on the fire. True humor is kind, inclusive, and disarming because it reminds us that love and friendship matter more than winning. When words are too sharp, actions can be softer remedies. A walk, for example, can do what no sentence can. Moving side by side, feeling the rhythm of footsteps, breathing fresh air, these change the body's chemistry. Anger feels different under the open sky. Many couples have found that arguments begun in kitchens or living rooms fade away during a stroll in the park. The environment shifts, the body calms, the mind clears. Central Park has witnessed countless reconciliations, not because of magic, but because walking transforms confrontation into conversation. Writing is another strategy. Heated arguments often lead to words we later regret, words we cannot take back. But when we pick up a pen instead of raising our voice, something changes. Writing forces the storm of thoughts to slow down, to take shape. Emotions that feel overwhelming in the chest become manageable on paper. Sometimes, by the time the letter is finished, we no longer feel the same anger that compelled us to begin. Writing allows the heat to cool before it burns others. It is an outlet that heals rather than wounds. Changing the environment is often overlooked but deeply effective. Conflict thrives in enclosed spaces, rooms heavy with tension, voices echoing against walls. But when you step outside, when you sit in a cafe or walk through a garden, the conflict begins to lose its grip. The shift in setting shifts the mind. Arguments that felt suffocating inside feel less urgent under the open sky. Even moving from one room to another can help. The physical change mirrors the emotional change we wish to create. The response reset is a discipline that can transform the way we handle conflict. It is the simple but powerful rule of waiting 24 hours before responding to heated issues. Anger insists on immediacy. It demands that we answer now, defend now, fight now, but almost nothing truly requires instant reaction. By waiting, we allow emotion to cool, clarity to return, and wisdom to guide. Many emails written in heat have never been sent because, by the next day, their authors realized silence was the wiser response. Many arguments have ended before they began because one person chose to sleep on it instead of fueling the fire. The response reset is not avoidance. It is wisdom in practice. Underlying all of these strategies is a lesson deeper than technique. Protecting peace is more valuable than proving right. Ego whispers that victory is the goal, that to walk away without the last word is to lose. But what is gained by proving right if the relationship is broken, if the room is poisoned, if your own heart is restless long after? Peace is the greater treasure. The one who keeps peace has not lost, they have won what matters most. This does not mean peace at any cost. It does not mean silencing truth or avoiding responsibility. Some conflicts must be faced. Boundaries must be set. Injustice must be named. But even then, the strategies of disarming apply. Speak truth calmly, not violently. Set boundaries firmly, not cruelly. Challenge injustice with clarity, not hatred. The goal is not to avoid all conflict, but to transform it into something that serves growth rather than destruction. Conflict will always visit our lives, but escalation is optional. When we learn to use neutral words, to invite humor, to walk instead of argue, to write instead of lash out, to wait instead of react, we disarm the fire before it consumes us. We discover that peace is not a passive state but an active choice, made moment by moment. And in choosing it, we find strength greater than any argument could offer. Disarming conflict is not about silencing every disagreement or pretending that tension does not exist. It is about creating enough space for peace to have a chance. Conflict feeds on urgency, ego, and defensiveness. The moment we replace those with patience, humility, and perspective, the flames begin to fade. What feels like an unstoppable storm often dissolves when we stop giving it the wind of our reaction. Consider the strategy of neutral words once more. In the workplace, a manager might criticize you unfairly in a meeting. Your first impulse is to protest, to defend your competence. But instead, you say, "I see where you're coming from. Let's revisit this after I've had time to think." These words shift the balance. They neither surrender nor escalate. They hold ground without drawing swords. Later in private, you can clarify with calm and facts. The immediate fire is disarmed because you chose to cool the moment rather than heat it. Humor, too, finds its place in professional life. Imagine two colleagues arguing over the details of a project, voices rising, tension mounting. Then one says with a smile, "At this rate, we'll spend more time arguing than finishing the project." The room laughs, the tension breaks, and the focus returns to the task. Humor is not denial. It is the reminder that connection is more important than conflict. Families provide fertile ground for conflict. Parents and children, siblings, partners, all carry deep histories and emotional triggers. Here, walking away in silence can feel like rejection, but walking together can transform everything. A father and son, arguing heatedly at home, decide to step outside. They walk down quiet streets, their words slowing as their feet find rhythm. By the time they return, the argument has softened into dialogue. The same heat that burned indoors loses strength beneath the open sky. Conflict thrives in confinement but weakens in openness. Writing as a tool to disarm conflict shines most in relationships strained by repeated patterns. Couples often fall into cycles. One raises a grievance, the other reacts defensively, and the cycle repeats. But when one writes instead, the cycle shifts. A letter allows vulnerability without interruption, honesty without shouting. Reading words on paper slows the heart, lets emotions settle, and opens the possibility for true listening. Many couples who could not resolve issues face to face have found resolution in written words. Writing disarms by transforming the tempo of conflict. The environment around us shapes the environment within us. Changing physical space can change emotional space. A heated debate at a dinner table may spiral endlessly, but if the same conversation happens during a walk through a park or sitting by a lake, the tone shifts. Nature itself acts as a mediator, softening voices and opening hearts. This is why cultures across the world have valued nature as a place of counsel and healing. Conflict weakens when placed against the vastness of the sky. The response reset is perhaps the most practical yet the most difficult strategy. Waiting 24 hours before responding feels unnatural because ego demands immediacy. But practice proves its worth. A heated email left unsent for a day often reveals itself to be unnecessary. A biting text drafted in anger, saved but not delivered, often looks foolish the next morning. Time itself is a peacemaker. In waiting, we realize how little truly needs a reply. This is not avoidance. It is wisdom learned through restraint. But disarming conflict is not just about techniques. It is about values. Beneath every strategy lies the core lesson. Protecting peace is more valuable than proving right. Our culture glorifies winning, but peace is the greater prize. To prove right may satisfy the ego for a moment, but it often leaves hearts wounded and minds restless. To protect peace may bruise pride, but it preserves what truly matters: relationships, clarity, inner stillness. Real-life wisdom confirms this. Many who have lived long, reflective lives often say their regrets are not about the arguments they lost, but about the peace they sacrificed to win. They remember words spoken in anger, victories claimed at the cost of connection, battles fought that left no joy in their aftermath. Rarely do they regret choosing silence, restraint, or humor. Peace outlives pride. Disarming conflict is also a gift to the wider world. In times when public discourse is poisoned with outrage, when communities fracture over differences, when social media thrives on division, choosing to disarm conflict becomes an act of resistance. Refusing to fuel arguments online, choosing dialogue over debate, offering calm when others offer heat, these are not small acts. They ripple outward, shifting the tone of entire spaces. One person who refuses to add fuel can change the direction of the fire. This is not to say disarming conflict is easy. It requires vigilance, courage, and humility. It demands that we put peace above ego, patience above pride. It asks us to pause when we want to strike, to laugh when we want to rage, to walk when we want to fight, to wait when we want to respond. But the rewards are profound: calmer hearts, deeper relationships, and the quiet strength of knowing that your peace is no longer hostage to the provocations of others. So the next time conflict knocks at your door, remember, you hold the tools to disarm it. Use neutral words instead of sharp ones. Invite humor where anger tries to live. Walk instead of argue. Write instead of shout. Change the space, and you change the tone. Wait and let time do its healing. Above all, remember that peace is worth more than victory. In choosing peace, you disarm not only the conflict outside you, but also the turmoil within. And that is the true triumph. Part 7. The freedom of detachment. In a world that constantly demands more attention, more possessions, more validation, it can feel impossible to ever find true freedom. We are tethered to expectations, to roles, to the judgments of others, and often to our own desires. But the greatest freedom lies not in acquiring more, but in learning to detach from the things that bind us. Detachment is not about withdrawal from life. It is about the ability to participate fully without being owned by what we participate in. It is a practice of letting go, of stepping back, of finding peace in a world that constantly tugs at us. The path to detachment begins with understanding the difference between attachment and connection. We are often told that love requires attachment, that to truly love someone or something, we must hold on tightly. But attachment and love are not the same. Attachment comes from fear. It is the need to control, to possess, to ensure that nothing slips away. Love, however, is free. It allows space, it trusts, it gives without expecting. Attachment binds us to outcomes, to expectations, to outcomes we cannot control. Love allows us to hold something lightly, knowing that whether it stays or goes, we remain whole. This shift from attachment to love requires a radical rethinking of how we view relationships, success, and even our own identity. We are conditioned to believe that our worth is defined by what we own, who we know, what we achieve. But the true source of freedom lies in releasing these external markers and finding fulfillment in simply being. When we detach from the need for external validation, we discover a sense of peace that does not depend on the fickleness of circumstances. At the heart of detachment is the ability to release the need for control. We are constantly striving to manage every aspect of our lives, our relationships, our careers, even our own emotions. The desire for control is rooted in fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of loss, the fear of failure. But the truth is, we cannot control life. We cannot control others, nor can we dictate outcomes. The more we try to control, the more tightly we grip, the more we suffocate ourselves. Detachment is the realization that we do not need to control everything to be at peace. We can live in flow, in alignment, trusting that life will unfold as it should. Imagine standing at the edge of a great river, watching the water flow effortlessly past. The river does not struggle to flow. It does not fight the rocks, the currents, the obstacles in its path. It simply moves forward, guided by the natural flow of life. This is the freedom of detachment. It is the ability to go with the flow of life, to trust that everything will unfold in its own time and way. Detachment does not mean abandoning responsibility or care. It means letting go of the need to control the outcome and trusting the process. In relationships, detachment can be one of the most liberating practices. So often we cling to people out of fear, fear of loneliness, fear of rejection, fear of being abandoned. We hold on tightly, trying to shape the relationship to meet our needs. But this creates tension, expectation, and disappointment. True love and connection come when we learn to let go of our need for control, when we release the idea that anyone else can fulfill us. Instead, we choose to be whole within ourselves, and we enter relationships not to take but to share. When we detach from the need to control the other person, we create space for the relationship to flourish in its own unique way. This is not easy. It requires vulnerability, courage, and trust. But when we learn to detach, we experience a freedom that is unparalleled. We no longer live in fear of loss because we understand that loss is a part of life. We can give freely without expecting because we know that the love we share is already whole. Detachment frees us from the chains of dependence, allowing us to love from a place of strength and independence. Detachment also applies to our relationship with possessions and achievements. In a consumer-driven society, we are taught that our worth is defined by what we own: our clothes, our homes, our cars, our material success. But these things are fleeting. They come and go, and they cannot provide lasting fulfillment. True freedom comes when we detach from the need to acquire, when we realize that our worth is not tied to what we possess. We can appreciate the beauty of life's offerings without clinging to them. We can enjoy the comforts of success without letting them define us. Detachment allows us to enjoy life's blessings without fear of losing them. This doesn't mean we must renounce all possessions or success. It means we can enjoy them with open hands, knowing that they do not own us. We are not defined by our possessions. We are not defined by our career. We are defined by who we are in the moment, not by what we have or what we have achieved. Detachment frees us from the weight of ownership, allowing us to experience life more fully. The practice of detachment also helps us navigate our emotions with greater ease. We are often ruled by our feelings, identifying with them as if they are who we are. Anger, sadness, joy, fear. These emotions arise and seem to define us in the moment. But detachment teaches us that we are not our emotions. We can experience them without being controlled by them. Emotions are like waves. They rise and fall, but they do not last forever. Detachment is the ability to observe our emotions without becoming entangled in them. We can feel anger without becoming angry. We can feel sadness without being consumed by it. Detachment allows us to live through emotions without being owned by them. To practice detachment, begin by observing your attachments. What do you hold onto in life, whether it is a person, a possession, a desire, or an outcome? Notice how much energy you give to these attachments. How much of your peace is tied to external things? How much of your sense of self is based on validation from others? Each time you notice an attachment, gently let it go. Allow yourself to detach from the outcome, from the need for approval, from the desire for control. In doing so, you create space for true freedom to enter. The more you practice detachment, the lighter you become. You begin to realize that you can live with less. You do not need to control every aspect of life. You do not need to prove your worth. You do not need to cling to anything. In detaching, you find that peace already exists within you. It was never outside of you. It was never dependent on circumstances, people, or possessions. Detachment reveals the truth that peace is already yours. It was always yours. So, the journey of detachment is a journey of trust. It is trusting that you are enough as you are without the need for validation. It is trusting that life will unfold as it should without your constant intervention. It is trusting that love is abundant, that relationships are fluid, and that you do not need to hold on tightly to anything to experience true connection. Detachment is freedom, not from life, but in life. It is the freedom to live fully, to give freely, and to love deeply without fear because you know that you are already whole. Detachment does not lead to emptiness, it leads to fullness. The less we cling to, the more we can embrace. And in that space, we find a peace that transcends all external conditions. That is the freedom of detachment, the freedom to be at peace no matter what the world brings. Detachment is one of those paradoxical practices where, by letting go, we gain everything. It is a practice of embracing the impermanent, accepting the fluidity of life, and recognizing that clinging to things, whether people, possessions, or outcomes, only traps us in cycles of dissatisfaction. When we learn to detach, we free ourselves from these cycles. We step out of the grasp of expectations, judgments, and fears, and we enter into the vast expanse of life itself. Imagine a tightrope walker balancing high above the ground. Every movement is delicate, every step calculated. If they grasp the rope too tightly, their body will shake and they will lose balance. But if they allow themselves to trust the rope and move with the rhythm of the walk, they find stability. Detachment is like that trust in the rope. It is the recognition that life is constantly shifting and that we do not need to grasp at it. Instead, we can step lightly through it, aware of each moment but not held captive by it. This is the paradox of detachment. By letting go of control, we gain the ability to move through life with grace and ease. In relationships, detachment manifests as the ability to love without needing to control or possess. Love in its purest form is a gift, not a transaction. When we attach too tightly to someone, whether a partner, friend, or family member, we inadvertently stifle the very love we seek to nurture. Love requires freedom. It requires space to grow. When we allow others the freedom to be themselves, we foster an environment where love can flourish. This does not mean withdrawing our love or support, but it means not holding on too tightly. We can care deeply without demanding that others meet our expectations or define us. Think of a mother and her child. The mother's love is constant, but her attachment to her child's behavior is not. She guides, she nurtures, she provides, but she does not demand that her child's every action meets her personal vision. She knows that her child, like all of us, must carve their own path. Detachment allows the mother to love without clinging, to offer support without imposing control. In doing so, she models the freedom of love, a love that trusts, a love that lets go. In our work, detachment allows us to invest deeply in what we do without becoming attached to the results. Often, we tie our sense of self-worth to our achievements. We believe that success or failure defines us. But this attachment to outcomes leads to anxiety and disappointment. Detachment, however, allows us to give our best, to work with passion, but to release the need for a specific result. We can care deeply about our work without becoming identified with it. We can celebrate success without clinging to it, and we can accept failure without feeling defeated. Detachment creates a space in which we are free to create, to build, and to grow, without being imprisoned by our expectations. Detachment is not apathy. It is the ability to engage in life fully without being weighed down by it. In fact, it is often the most passionate, dedicated individuals who practice detachment most effectively. Why? Because they are free from the fear of loss, from the need for validation, from the pressure to prove themselves. They are able to engage with their passions and endeavors with an open heart, unburdened by the weight of expectation. This freedom creates space for creativity, for innovation, for connection. Another area where detachment plays a transformative role is in the way we approach time. So much of our stress comes from the fear of running out of time, time to accomplish our goals, time to live our dreams, time to be with loved ones. We grasp at time as if it is a commodity that can be controlled, but time is like water, flowing, changing, and impossible to hold. Detachment from time means understanding that we cannot control it, but we can live fully within it. Instead of rushing through life, we begin to savor it. We engage in each moment without trying to force it to be something it is not. The freedom of detachment is the ability to be present with time as it is, rather than constantly chasing it. There is a concept in Zen Buddhism known as mu. It refers to the idea of emptiness, not in the sense of lack, but in the sense of spaciousness and openness. When we let go of attachment, we create space in our lives. We are no longer weighed down by the past, by regrets or failures. We are no longer bound by the future, by fears or expectations. We become empty in a way that allows for everything to flow freely through us. We are open to the present moment, to the beauty and the challenges it brings, without the burden of attachment. This emptiness is not a void. It is a space filled with potential. A key practice for cultivating detachment is mindfulness. When we are mindful, we are aware of our thoughts and emotions, but we do not identify with them. We observe without judgment, recognizing that we are not our thoughts. We are the observer of them. This practice helps us detach from the narrative we tell ourselves about who we are and what we must do. When we detach from these mental constructs, we create room for a deeper awareness of our true self. This self is not defined by accomplishments, possessions, or opinions. It simply is, and in this space we find peace. Imagine a bird flying high above a city. The bird is aware of the buildings below, of the people moving through the streets, but it is not attached to any of them. It does not need the city to be a certain way for it to exist. It is free. This is what detachment offers us, the freedom to soar above the noise and chaos of the world, to see it clearly without being caught in it. We can be present in the world without letting it define us. Detachment also involves a deep level of trust. When we detach, we trust that the universe will unfold as it should, that we do not need to control every detail. We trust that, even in uncertainty, we are safe. This trust frees us from the anxiety of trying to predict and manipulate the future. We stop living in anticipation of what's next, and instead, we live fully in what is. Detachment gives us the strength to face the unknown without fear, because we know that we are supported by something greater than ourselves. The process of detachment is not about renouncing the world or withdrawing from life. It is about living in a way that is free from the constant pull of desire, fear, and attachment. It is the ability to engage with life fully, with an open heart, but without being enslaved by it. Detachment is freedom, and in that freedom we find peace, joy, and a deeper connection to ourselves and the world around us. So how do we cultivate this freedom of detachment? Start small. Practice letting go of one thing each day. Perhaps an expectation, perhaps a desire, perhaps an attachment to an outcome. Over time, these small acts of letting go accumulate, and you will find yourself less burdened by the weight of the world. You will find that you are lighter, freer, and more present. Detachment is not a destination. It is a journey, one that leads to greater peace and freedom with each step. Detachment does not mean withdrawing from life. It means embracing it without attachment. It means allowing yourself to love deeply but without the fear of loss. It means working passionately but without the anxiety of success or failure. It means living fully but without the need to control. In the freedom of detachment, you find the freedom to simply be, and in that being you discover the peace that has always been within you. Part 8. The Power of Presence. In a world that constantly demands our attention, where distractions pull us in every direction, the ability to be truly present is one of the greatest gifts we can offer ourselves and others. Presence is not simply about being physically present. It is about being mentally, emotionally, and spiritually engaged in the moment at hand. It is the ability to fully experience life without being clouded by the past or preoccupied with the future. Presence is the space where peace, clarity, and connection are born. Most of us, however, spend much of our lives distracted. Our minds are cluttered with worries about what has already happened or what might happen. We replay old conversations in our minds, analyzing every word and gesture. We imagine future scenarios, worrying about what could go wrong. These distractions pull us away from the present moment, from the richness of life as it is. But the power of presence is the ability to step into this moment fully, without resistance, and to experience it with all of our senses, our heart, and our mind. Being present means surrendering the need for control. We cannot control what has already passed, nor can we dictate what the future holds. The only thing we truly have control over is this moment. Presence requires us to let go of our attachments to outcomes, to plans, to expectations, and to embrace life as it unfolds. It is an invitation to stop fighting reality and simply accept what is. Think of a time when you were fully immersed in an experience. Perhaps it was a conversation with someone you love, a moment of creative expression, or simply sitting in nature. In those moments, time seemed to slow down. There was no rush, no pressure. You were completely alive in the moment. This is the power of presence. It has the ability to make life feel richer, more meaningful, and more connected. When we are present, we are able to engage with the world and others in a way that is authentic and wholehearted. Presence also allows us to connect with others on a deeper level. In relationships, there is nothing more powerful than being fully present with another person. When we listen without distraction, when we engage without judgment, when we offer our undivided attention, we create space for true connection. Too often, we are distracted by our phones, our thoughts, or our agendas, and we fail to truly see the people around us. But when we choose to be present with them, we honor their humanity. We create an environment where trust, intimacy, and understanding can grow. One of the most profound ways to practice presence is through active listening. When we truly listen to someone, we are not thinking about our response or planning what to say next. We are fully engaged in what they are saying, absorbing their words, emotions, and intentions. We create space for them to be heard, and in that space they feel valued and understood. Active listening is a form of presence that can transform relationships, whether personal or professional. It is a simple act, yet it has the power to deepen connection and foster empathy. Presence is also the antidote to stress and anxiety. When we are consumed by worry about the future or regret about the past, we become disconnected from the present moment. We lose touch with the joy and beauty that is available to us right here and right now. But when we practice presence, we begin to experience life as it is. We find peace in the simple act of being alive, of breathing, of noticing the world around us. One practice that can help cultivate presence is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of paying attention to the present moment with intention and without judgment. It is the practice of fully experiencing each moment, whether it is mundane or extraordinary, and accepting it as it is. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to let go of distractions and to be fully engaged in whatever we are doing. It might be something as simple as drinking a cup of tea, walking down the street, or listening to a friend. Through mindfulness, we cultivate the ability to bring our full attention to the present moment, which enhances our experience and fosters peace. In our busy world, it can feel difficult to slow down and be present. We are constantly bombarded by notifications, demands, and distractions. But the practice of presence begins with small steps. It can start by simply noticing the present moment. Take a deep breath and feel the air entering your lungs. Look around and notice the colors, shapes, and textures in your environment. Pay attention to the sensations in your body. By bringing your awareness to the present, you ground yourself in the here and now. Over time, you will develop the ability to carry this presence into all areas of your life. Presence is also the foundation of gratitude. When we are present, we are able to fully appreciate the gifts of life. We notice the beauty in the everyday, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the laughter of a loved one, the taste of food, the feeling of peace in a quiet moment. Gratitude flows naturally when we are present because we see the abundance that surrounds us. Presence helps us to shift our focus from what is lacking to what is already here, reminding us that life in all its forms is a gift. The power of presence is transformative. It changes the way we experience our relationships, our work, and our world. When we are fully present, we are no longer just going through the motions. We are living with intention, with awareness, with love. We are no longer lost in the past or consumed by the future. We are here now, and in that moment we are free. But presence is not just a personal practice. It is a gift we offer to others. In our interactions with others, we can choose to be fully present. We can listen without judgment, speak without ego, and connect without expectation. When we do this, we create a space for others to be seen, heard, and valued. This is the true power of presence. It not only transforms our own lives, but it has the power to transform the lives of those around us. So, the next time you find yourself caught in the swirl of distraction, take a moment to return to the present. Breathe deeply, notice the world around you, and choose to engage fully with the moment. In doing so, you will unlock the power of presence, and in that presence, you will discover the freedom that lies within. To truly embrace the power of presence is to accept that the present moment is all we have. We are often so preoccupied with the past and the future that we miss the richness of life unfolding right before us. We replay old conversations, worry about future outcomes, and in doing so, we bypass the only moment that can bring us peace right now. But presence is the practice of bringing our awareness back to the now, over and over again. It is not a one-time choice, but a commitment to constantly return to the present moment, no matter how often our minds wander. The power of presence lies in its simplicity. It does not require grand gestures or monumental changes. It only requires that we be willing to engage fully with what is happening around us. The simplest moments, sipping a cup of coffee, feeling the wind on our skin, watching a child laugh, become extraordinary when we are fully present. This is why presence is often referred to as a power, because it allows us to experience life more deeply, more intensely, more meaningfully. Presence also holds the key to emotional resilience. Life will always present challenges, disappointment, heartbreak, frustration, and loss. But when we are present, we are not consumed by these emotions. We can feel them, acknowledge them, and let them pass through us. We do not need to hold onto them. We are not defined by our emotions. We are the ones who observe them. The power of presence is that it allows us to be with our feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Think about a time when you felt deeply challenged. Perhaps it was a personal crisis, a moment of loss, or a time when everything seemed uncertain. If you look back on that experience, you may realize that the moments you felt most grounded were the moments when you were fully present, whether it was breathing deeply, sitting quietly, or simply acknowledging what was happening without judgment. The power of presence is that, in times of chaos, it is the anchor that keeps us steady. Presence also creates space for others to be their authentic selves. When we are present with someone, we are not thinking about how they can serve our needs, how they can validate our ideas, or how they can meet our expectations. We are simply allowing them to be who they are. This space of acceptance creates a deeper connection. Think of the difference between a conversation where both parties are truly listening and one where they are simply waiting for their turn to speak. In the former, there is understanding, connection, and love. In the latter, there is only noise. When we give others our full presence, we allow them to feel seen, heard, and valued, and that in turn creates the conditions for a truly authentic relationship. But how do we cultivate this kind of presence? It begins with mindfulness, the practice of paying attention to the present moment without distraction. Mindfulness can be practiced in many ways: through meditation, through walking, through eating, or through listening. The key is to bring our attention back to the moment whenever our mind drifts away. The more we practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes to remain present in all aspects of our lives. We begin to see life not as a series of tasks to be completed, but as a series of moments to be experienced. We find beauty in the small things: the way the light changes in the morning, the sound of rain on the window, the warmth of a hug. Life becomes richer, more vibrant because we are no longer looking past it but fully engaging with it. Another way to cultivate presence is through intentional silence. In our busy world, we are rarely without noise, whether it's the hum of traffic, the chatter of social media, or the constant bombardment of information. But silence offers a space for us to reconnect with ourselves and with the world around us. Silence is not emptiness. It is a container in which presence can flourish. Try taking time each day to sit in silence, without distractions, without a goal, without a plan. Let your mind wander and then gently bring it back to the present. Allow yourself to simply be. In this space, you may begin to notice the thoughts and feelings that arise, but you will also notice how they pass by like clouds drifting across the sky. In silence, we are reminded that we are not our thoughts, we are the observer of them. And in this observation, we find peace. Presence also calls for acceptance of what is. So often, we resist the present moment because it doesn't align with our desires or expectations. We wish things were different. Maybe we want more time, more success, more love. But when we fight against what is, we create suffering. Presence is the art of accepting the moment as it is, without judgment or resistance. It is not about liking everything that happens. It is about being with it without needing to change it. This is not passivity, but deep engagement. The more we accept what is, the more peaceful and free we become. The more we practice presence, the more we begin to notice the richness of our lives, even in the ordinary. We realize that we have been living in the future or the past, and that we have missed the beauty of the present. The moments we used to overlook, the quiet moments between tasks, the pauses between conversations, the spaces of stillness, become sacred. The power of presence is that it shows us how to live life in its fullness. We stop waiting for the big moments, and we start appreciating the small ones. Another important aspect of presence is that it allows us to let go of the need to control. So much of our stress comes from our desire to control everything around us, from our relationships to our careers to the way others perceive us. But the more we try to control, the more we resist the flow of life. When we are present, we realize that we cannot control everything. We can only control how we respond to what happens. And when we release the need for control, we find that life flows with more ease. Presence is the practice of surrender, surrendering the need to control outcomes and embracing the beauty of the unknown. Lastly, presence is not just about slowing down, it is about deepening our experience. In a fast-paced world, we are conditioned to do more and be more. But presence asks us to be less, to do less, to rush less, to force less. The paradox is that when we do less, we experience more. We experience more of life, more of ourselves, and more of others. Presence teaches us that we do not need to be busy to be fulfilled. We do not need to be productive to be valuable. We simply need to be here now. To summarize, the power of presence lies in its ability to transform our experience of life. It is the ability to be fully alive in the moment, to connect deeply with others, and to find peace amidst the chaos. The more we practice presence, the more we open ourselves to the richness of life. We learn to accept what is, to listen deeply, to live without distractions, and to find joy in the smallest moments. Presence is the key to living fully, to experiencing love, to finding peace. And in this presence, we discover the freedom to be who we truly are, without fear, without regret, and without the need to control. Part 9. The Art of Letting Go. Letting go is one of the most profound and liberating practices in life. It is the act of releasing our grip on things, on people, on emotions, and on expectations. It is the freedom to step away from what no longer serves us, to embrace the impermanence of life, and to make peace with the flow of change. Letting go is not about abandoning our responsibilities or giving up. It is about recognizing what we can no longer hold onto and allowing ourselves to move forward, unburdened. At the heart of letting go is the recognition that attachment is the root of suffering. We are not taught to let go in a culture that promotes accumulation, whether it's material possessions, achievements, or relationships. We are taught to hold on, to strive for more, and to build our identities around what we accumulate. But this clinging creates a life built on fragile ground. What happens when we lose what we've worked so hard to accumulate? What happens when life changes and we cannot control the outcomes? The art of letting go is the art of trusting life to unfold as it will, without the need for constant control. We all carry attachments, often without realizing it. These attachments are not just to physical objects, but to ideas, to outcomes, to people, and to versions of ourselves. We are attached to who we were, to who we think we should be, and to what we believe we must have to be happy. Letting go asks us to loosen these attachments, to allow ourselves to evolve, and to embrace life as it comes, without the need to control or predict it. Letting go starts with awareness. The first step is recognizing what we are attached to. It could be a relationship that has run its course, a job that no longer fulfills us, an object we cling to for sentimental reasons, or even a belief about ourselves that no longer serves our growth. These attachments often hold us back, keeping us stuck in the past or trapped in a cycle of fear and desire. Once we recognize these attachments, we can begin the process of releasing them. But letting go is not easy. We are wired to hold on. It is in our nature to seek security, to find comfort in what we know. When we let go, we face uncertainty, and uncertainty can feel like a void, a loss, or even a threat. But in truth, letting go creates space for something new to enter. It is in releasing what we hold onto that we make room for growth, healing, and transformation. One of the greatest attachments we hold is to our past. Our memories, both joyful and painful, shape how we see ourselves. We may cling to past successes, holding onto them as proof of our worth, or we may hold on to past wounds, carrying the weight of old hurts. Letting go of the past means freeing ourselves from these anchors. It does not mean forgetting or erasing history. It means releasing the power that the past holds over us. The past is a story, not a sentence. We are not defined by what has happened to us, but by how we choose to live in the present. In relationships, letting go can be especially challenging. We often hold on to people, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of rejection, fear of being incomplete. But love is not about ownership. True love is freedom, freedom for ourselves and for the other person. When we let go of the need to control, to possess, or to hold on to someone else, we create space for a deeper, more authentic connection. This does not mean ending relationships, but it means giving them the freedom to evolve, to change, and to grow. Letting go of attachment in relationships allows both parties to be fully themselves, without the weight of expectation. Letting go is also about releasing our attachment to outcomes. How often do we find ourselves struggling to make things happen exactly as we envision them? We obsess over plans, over expectations, over the way things should unfold. But life rarely follows the script we write for it. When we become too attached to outcomes, we lose sight of the beauty of the process. Letting go of outcomes means trusting the journey, even when it doesn't look the way we imagined. It means accepting that life has a rhythm, and sometimes that rhythm takes us in unexpected directions. The beauty lies not in the destination, but in the journey itself. The fear of letting go is often tied to a deep-seated belief that we will lose something vital, our identity, our security, our sense of purpose. But in reality, letting go is not a loss. It is a liberation. When we let go of what no longer serves us, we free ourselves from the chains of attachment. We are not losing, we are gaining space, peace, and the opportunity to align more deeply with our true selves. One of the practices that can help with letting go is mindfulness. Mindfulness teaches us to be fully present in the moment, to observe our thoughts, feelings, and attachments without judgment. By practicing mindfulness, we begin to see that our attachments are not permanent. They are transient, like clouds passing through the sky. We do not need to hold on to them. We can simply observe them, let them be, and then let them go. The more we practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes to detach from the stories we tell ourselves, the fears we carry, and the desires that control us. We begin to see life more clearly as it is, without the distortion of attachment. Another powerful tool for letting go is journaling. Writing allows us to process our emotions, to release our fears, and to reflect on what we are holding on to. By putting our thoughts and feelings on paper, we externalize them and create space for new perspectives. Journaling can help us identify the things we are attached to, whether they are beliefs, people, or past experiences, and begin the process of releasing them. Writing helps us clarify what we truly need to let go of and what we need to embrace. Letting go also requires self-compassion. Often, we hold on to things because we are afraid of making mistakes, of facing uncertainty, or of being judged. But in reality, letting go is an act of self-love. It is the acknowledgement that we are worthy of freedom, that we are worthy of peace, and that we do not need to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Self-compassion allows us to release the guilt, shame, and fear that hold us back, and to embrace the freedom that comes with letting go. There is a Buddhist teaching that speaks to the power of letting go. Let go or be dragged. When we cling to things, whether they are objects, beliefs, or relationships, we become weighed down. We are dragged along by our attachments, unable to move freely. But when we let go, we are free to move with the flow of life. We are no longer held back by the past, by fear, or by the need to control. We are liberated to live fully, to experience life as it is, and to step into the unknown with confidence and peace. In the end, letting go is not about loss. It is about gaining freedom. It is the freedom to live without the weight of attachment, to love without possessiveness, and to engage with life without fear of what may come. When we let go, we make space for new opportunities, new relationships, and new growth. We allow ourselves to evolve, to change, and to become more fully who we are meant to be. The art of letting go is the art of embracing life in its fullest form. It is the practice of releasing what we cannot control, accepting what is, and finding peace in the flow of life. When we let go, we discover a freedom that no attachment can ever provide. This freedom is not found in what we hold on to, but in what we release. And in that release, we find our true self, our true purpose, and our true peace. Part 10. Embracing change. Change is the only constant in life. Yet for many of us, change is a source of fear, resistance, and anxiety. We fear losing control, the unknown, and the discomfort that comes with stepping into unfamiliar territory. We hold tightly to the familiar, to what we know, and we resist the flow of life. But in truth, change is not something to be feared. It is something to be embraced. It is through change that we grow, evolve, and discover new possibilities. Embracing change is not about surrendering to it without care. It is about welcoming it as an opportunity for transformation, for renewal, and for deeper understanding. To embrace change requires a shift in mindset. It is the ability to see change not as a disruption, but as a natural part of the ebb and flow of life. Change is like the seasons. Winter gives way to spring and spring to summer. Without the changing seasons, life would not thrive. In the same way, our lives require change to grow and evolve. It is in the moments of transition, whether they are small or large, that we are given the chance to reshape our lives, to redefine ourselves, and to step into a fuller version of who we are. The first step in embracing change is to let go of the illusion of control. We live in a society that values control above all else. We are taught to plan, to predict, to manipulate outcomes in our favor. We are told that success comes from mastering our circumstances. But the truth is, we can never control everything. Life is unpredictable. People change, circumstances shift, and the unexpected happens. When we cling to the illusion of control, we only create stress and anxiety. We become frustrated when things don't go according to plan, and we miss the beauty of what is unfolding in the moment. Embracing change is about accepting that we do not have control over everything, and that's okay. It's about stepping into the unknown with trust and curiosity. It's about being open to the new, even when it feels uncomfortable. When we release our need for control, we create space for growth. We learn to flow with life, to adapt to new situations, and to trust that change, while challenging, is also an essential part of our journey. One of the most profound ways to embrace change is to practice acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up or settling for less. It means acknowledging that what is happening right now is part of the process. It means recognizing that change is inevitable, and rather than fighting it, we can choose to flow with it. Acceptance allows us to be at peace with the present moment, even when the present moment is uncomfortable or uncertain. It is the recognition that, even in the midst of change, we can find stability within ourselves. A key part of embracing change is learning to see it as an opportunity. Change often brings with it discomfort, but it also brings with it new possibilities. It is through change that we learn, grow, and expand. Change forces us out of our comfort zones, but it is in the discomfort that we experience the greatest opportunities for transformation. Every time we face change, we have the chance to redefine ourselves, to shift our perspective, and to step into a new chapter of our lives. Think about the caterpillar that transforms into a butterfly. The process is not easy. The caterpillar must shed its old form, break out of its cocoon, and emerge into the world as something entirely new. This transformation requires vulnerability, patience, and trust, but it is through this process that the caterpillar becomes the butterfly. In the same way, we must shed our old selves, our old patterns, and our old beliefs in order to grow into the person we are meant to be. Embracing change means being willing to let go of the past and trust that the future holds something beautiful. One of the greatest obstacles to embracing change is fear. We fear the unknown. We fear that we will not be able to handle what comes next. But fear is often based on our imagination, not on reality. We project our fears into the future, imagining worst-case scenarios, and in doing so, we prevent ourselves from moving forward. The truth is, we do not know what the future holds, but this uncertainty is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. The unknown is where possibility lies. The unknown is where we grow. When we embrace change, we let go of fear and step into the adventure of life. Another barrier to embracing change is attachment to the past. We often look back on our lives with nostalgia, holding on to what once was. We may cling to past relationships, jobs, or experiences because they are familiar, because they bring us comfort. But when we hold on to the past, we prevent ourselves from moving forward. The past is a memory. It is no longer real. What is real is the present moment, and it is in the present moment that we have the power to shape our future. Letting go of the past and embracing change allows us to create new memories, to build new experiences, and to live fully in the now. Change also invites us to examine our beliefs. Often, we resist change because we are attached to the way things have always been. We hold on to beliefs about ourselves, about others, and about the world that are no longer serving us. These beliefs keep us stuck in old patterns, preventing us from evolving. Embracing change requires us to challenge our beliefs, to question the stories we've told ourselves, and to open ourselves to new possibilities. It is in this questioning that we find freedom. When we release our attachment to old beliefs, we create space for new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and new ways of seeing the world. One of the most powerful ways to embrace change is through mindfulness. Mindfulness teaches us to be present with whatever is happening in the moment without judgment. It allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. Mindfulness helps us to see change as a natural part of life, rather than something to fear. When we are mindful, we are able to fully experience change, rather than resist it. Mindfulness allows us to respond to change with clarity, rather than reacting out of fear or habit. Another practice that can help us embrace change is gratitude. When we are grateful for what we have, we can more easily let go of what we no longer need. Gratitude shifts our focus from lack to abundance. It reminds us that even in times of change, There is always something to be grateful for. Gratitude helps us to see the positive aspects of change, even when it feels difficult. When we cultivate gratitude, we open ourselves up to the beauty of life's transitions. To embrace change is to accept that life is not static. It is a flowing river, constantly shifting, evolving, and growing. Change is the very essence of life. It is the force that propels us forward, the energy that allows us to evolve, the spark that keeps us alive. When we embrace change, we align ourselves with the natural flow of life. We stop fighting against the current, and we learn to move with it. The beauty of embracing change is that it brings us closer to our true selves. Change forces us to shed the layers of who we thought we were and to discover who we truly are. It opens us to new possibilities, new experiences, and new ways of being. Embracing change is not about rejecting the past or fearing the future. It is about living fully in the present, knowing that everything is part of the unfolding journey. So, the next time you face change, whether big or small, remember that it is an opportunity, not a threat. Embrace it with curiosity, with openness, and with trust. Let go of your attachment to outcomes, your fear of the unknown, and your need for control. Step into the flow of life, knowing that change is the very thing that allows you to grow, to evolve, and to become the person you are meant to be. Throughout this journey, we have explored profound concepts that are often overlooked in our daily lives. Concepts such as the power of silence, the art of non-response, the balance between ego and peace, the transformative strength of detachment, and the critical importance of presence. Together, these principles form the foundation of living a life not dictated by external pressures, but one that flows in harmony with our deeper values and truths. Each part of this exploration presents a unique perspective on how we can shape our responses, transform our relationships, and cultivate inner peace in a world filled with noise, distraction, and chaos. In Part 1, we learned the power of silence, not as a sign of weakness, but as a deliberate strength that allows us to step away from unnecessary conflict, to disengage from negative energy, and to preserve our own peace. Silence is often the most powerful response we can offer in a world that encourages endless reactions. It is the quiet that precedes wisdom, the calm that nurtures clarity, and the strength that holds back the tide of impulsive words and actions. In Part 2, we discuss the trap of reaction, where we are conditioned to defend ourselves and react instinctively to perceived threats. But as we explored, we saw that reaction only hands over control to others. It is in non-reaction that we regain our power. By practicing patience, listening, and the art of choosing when to speak or stay silent, we can transform moments of conflict into opportunities for connection and understanding. This is a lesson we often forget in our rush to assert ourselves in the heat of the moment. Part 3 delved into the tension between ego and peace. The ego's need for validation, for superiority, and for constant reinforcement can lead to an exhausting cycle of striving and disappointment. Peace, however, is found when we step away from these demands and learn to accept ourselves without the need for comparison or external affirmation. The ego is a false identity, a collection of labels and judgments, but peace is rooted in the acceptance of who we are, as we are. In choosing peace, we stop the cycle of endless comparison and embrace the simplicity of being present with ourselves. In Part 4, we examined the power of non-response. Here, we learned that not every conflict requires our input. Sometimes, the most profound act of wisdom is silence. The art of non-response is a practice of stepping back, not out of avoidance, but out of a recognition that we do not need to engage in every battle. We do not need to defend ourselves against every slight, nor do we need to participate in every argument. Non-response allows us to protect our peace and energy, and in doing so, we avoid unnecessary conflict and save ourselves from the emotional toll of needless disputes. Part 5 focused on knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. This is a crucial skill in navigating our relationships and in communicating effectively. We learn that not every moment demands a response, and not every disagreement needs to be won. Sometimes the greatest strength is in knowing when silence serves us and when words can heal. By practicing discernment, we can avoid unnecessary arguments, foster deeper connections, and communicate with more authenticity and clarity. Part 6 introduced us to strategies for disarming conflict, where we explored practical tools such as using neutral words, humor, walking meditation, and the response reset. These tools are designed to help us respond to conflict in a way that de-escalates rather than exacerbates tension. They teach us to approach conflict not as an enemy to defeat, but as a challenge to navigate with mindfulness and wisdom. These strategies empower us to protect our peace and avoid the emotional turmoil that often accompanies conflict. Part 7 took us on a journey of detachment, where we learned the importance of letting go of attachments to people, outcomes, and possessions. Detachment is not about withdrawal or disengagement. It is about finding freedom in releasing the need to control, possess, or cling to anything. By practicing detachment, we learn to live with greater ease, to move through life without fear of loss, and to embrace the fluidity of change. Detachment creates space for growth, for new experiences, and for deeper connection with ourselves and others. In Part 8, we explored the power of presence, the ability to be fully engaged in the present moment without distraction or judgment. Presence is the antidote to the anxiety and restlessness that often plague our minds. By being present, we become more attuned to the beauty of life, more connected to the people around us, and more grounded in our own hearts. Presence allows us to live fully, to appreciate the richness of each moment, and to cultivate peace amidst the chaos of the world. Finally, in Part 9, we delved into the art of letting go. Letting go is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to fate. It is about releasing the need to control, to possess, and to cling to the past. It is the act of freeing ourselves from the weight of attachments that no longer serve us. Letting go is liberating. It allows us to embrace life as it is, to accept change, and to step into the unknown with trust and courage. The practice of letting go creates space for new possibilities, for personal growth, and for inner peace. The deep lesson to apply to your life. The deeper lesson we can take from this entire exploration is that peace is not something we attain by external circumstances, but something we create from within. It is about choosing how we respond to life, not letting life dictate our responses. Peace is found when we stop reacting from ego, from fear, from the need to control, and when we choose to live with intention, with presence, and with love. It is found when we detach from the need to be right, the need for validation, and the need for security in external things. It is found when we embrace change as an opportunity for growth, when we let go of what no longer serves us, and when we cultivate a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. How to apply this to your current life? Practice silence. Start by embracing silence in moments of tension. Choose not to respond immediately to every comment, every insult, or every disagreement. Give yourself the space to breathe, reflect, and choose your response wisely. Detach from outcomes. Let go of your attachment to how things should turn out. Trust the process and allow yourself to flow with life. This doesn't mean neglecting responsibilities. It means letting go of the need to control every detail and outcome. Be present. Focus on being fully engaged in the present moment. When you're with your loved ones, be with them completely. When you're working, focus fully on the task at hand. Notice the beauty in the everyday moments. Embrace change. See change as a natural part of life. Instead of resisting it, ask yourself what new opportunities or lessons this change can bring. Practice acceptance, knowing that growth often comes through discomfort. Let go. Release old attachments, whether they are to past hurts, past relationships, or old identities. Let go of the need to be validated by others and focus on finding peace within yourself. Your thoughts and perspective. How do you feel about these concepts? Have you practiced any of these principles in your own life? What challenges do you face when trying to let go, be present, or embrace change? I would love to hear your thoughts, experiences, and opinions. Please leave a comment below so we can all learn from each other's perspectives. Lastly, if this content resonated with you, if it made you think or inspired you to shift your perspective, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue creating content that adds value, inspires change, and fosters peace in the world. Thank you for being part of this journey. We look forward to bringing you even more meaningful insights in the next video.